ass off, giving me one shitty mission after another.
You're an expendable! You're here to be expended!
Every time I died, they just printed.
Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
In the ever-evolving landscape of modern science fiction cinema, Mickey 17 emerges as one of the most intellectually daring and visually arresting films of 2025. Directed by the Academy Award-winning filmmaker Bong Joon-ho, who is best known for his genre-defying masterpiece Parasite, 2019, this film pushes the boundaries of storytelling, ethics, and human identity in a futuristic context. From its haunting premise to its philosophical undertones, Mickey 17 captivates audiences by merging existential questions with breathtaking visual storytelling. The film takes its name from the main character, Mickey Barnes, who is part of a series of expendable human clones designed to perform dangerous tasks in a distant world where human life has been devalued and replicated technology has blurred the line between man and machine. Set in a cold, unforgiving extraterrestrial colony known as Niflheim, Mickey 17 invites the audience into a bleak yet mesmerizing universe where survival depends not only on physical endurance, but also on the persistence of the human soul. Bong Joon-ho, known for his intricate balance between humor and social critique, crafts a narrative that is as visually stunning as it is emotionally and intellectually stimulating. The story is based on Edward Ashton's 2022 novel Mickey 7, but Bong reimagines it with his distinctive cinematic voice, expanding its scope and emotional depth. While the book primarily focused on existential musings of a single clone, the film delves deeper into the societal and moral implications of cloning technology, corporate greed, and the fragility of self-awareness. The film's protagonist, Mickey 17, portrayed by Robert Pattinson, is not just another sci-fi hero. He represents the embodiment of human resilience and the search for meaning in a world that treats life as disposable. Pattinson's portrayal brings depth and sensitivity to the role, depicting Mickey as both a tragic and transcendent figure. Each time Mickey dies, he is replaced by a new clone, Mickey 18, 19, and so on, each carrying fragments of the memories and emotions of the previous iteration. Yet the more he is recreated, the more fragmented his identity becomes. The film explores this fragmentation through dreamlike visuals, non-linear storytelling, and quiet moments of introspection that challenge the viewer to question the essence of individuality. Is Mickey still the same person after countless deaths and rebirths, or does each clone represent a new consciousness altogether? This question lies at the heart of Mickey 17. Bong Joon-ho transforms what could have been a straightforward sci-fi plot into a profound meditation on existence. In one of the film's early sequences, Mickey 17 awakens in a sterile laboratory surrounded by his previous clones' lifeless bodies. The chilling sight immediately establishes the tone of the film, a mix of scientific detachment and emotional devastation. Through stunning production design and deliberate pacing, Bong immerses viewers in an alien world that mirrors our own capitalist and moral decay. The colony on Niflheim, while technologically advanced, is governed by a rigid hierarchy and an economy of exploitation, where expendable workers like Mickey are created, used, and discarded in endless cycles. It's a haunting reflection of modern-day labor systems and consumer culture, cleverly disguised beneath the surface of futuristic science fiction. From a cinematic standpoint, Mickey 17 is a masterclass in visual storytelling. The cold blues and silvers of the Niflheim colony are contrasted with the warm, flickering hues of Mickey's fragmented memories from Earth. These visual juxtapositions are not merely aesthetic choices. They symbolize the tension between mechanical existence and human emotion. Bong's longtime cinematographer Hong Kyung-pyo, who also shot Parasite and Burning, brings his trademark realism and elegance to the sci-fi setting. Every frame feels meticulously composed, reflecting the isolation and existential dread of a man trapped between life and death, consciousness and replication. The visuals often oscillate between stark realism and surreal abstraction, creating a hallucinatory atmosphere that perfectly mirrors Mickey's deteriorating sense of self. Sound design and music play equally crucial roles in shaping the film's mood. The score by composer Jung Jae-il blends haunting electronic tones with orchestral swells, capturing both the coldness of the futuristic setting and the raw emotion of Mickey's inner turmoil. Every hum, echo, and silence feels intentional, guiding the audience through the psychological labyrinth of the protagonist's experience. When Mickey confronts his next version, Mickey 18, the tension is underscored not by loud music but by an almost unbearable quiet, broken only by the faint buzz of the cloning machinery. It's in these silences that the film finds its greatest power, the moment where technology meets humanity in unsettling intimacy. Narratively, Mickey 17 defies traditional structure. Bong Joon-ho doesn't spoon-feed his audience with exposition or linear progression. Instead, he constructs the story through fragmented timelines, dream sequences, and unreliable narration that force the viewer to question what is real and what is memory. This narrative technique not only enhances the mystery, but also mirrors Mickey's disjointed consciousness. The viewer, much like the protagonist, is trapped in a loop of déjà vu, constantly questioning whether they are witnessing the present Mickey or a previous version. The brilliance of this approach lies in its ability to immerse the audience in the same existential confusion that defines the film's central character. Another striking element is Bong's use of dark humor. Just as in Parasite and Snowpiercer, he weaves absurdity into tragedy, making the story feel painfully human despite its cosmic scale. Mickey's casual acceptance of his own death, followed by his sarcastic remarks about being replaced, reflects the absurdity of a world where death has lost its meaning. This cynical humor serves as both a coping mechanism for the character and a commentary on how modern society numbs itself to suffering and repetition. The tone shifts seamlessly between horror, comedy, and melancholy, showcasing Bong's unparalleled ability to balance emotional complexity within genre storytelling. The supporting cast adds rich layers to the narrative. Naomi Ackie plays Nasha, a scientist who begins to question the moral implications of the cloning program and forms a complex bond with Mickey. Her character acts as the emotional anchor of the story, a mirror reflecting Mickey's humanity back at him when he begins to lose it. Mark Ruffalo delivers a chilling performance as the colony's governor, whose pragmatic approach to survival masks a deep moral rot. Stephen Yeun, in a pivotal supporting role, embodies the existential anxiety of another clone who has begun to lose his sense of self entirely. Together, these characters create a microcosm of a society struggling with the cost of immortality. Beyond its technical brilliance and performances, Mickey 17 succeeds because it speaks directly to contemporary anxieties about technology, identity, and mortality. In a time when AI, genetic engineering, and transhumanism are rapidly advancing, the film feels disturbingly relevant. It raises questions about what it means to be human in an age when consciousness can be replicated and bodies can be replaced. If death no longer defines the boundaries of life, what then defines personhood? Bong Joon-ho doesn't offer clear answers. Instead, he compels the audience to wrestle with these questions long after the credits roll. The film's philosophical undertones resonate with classic works like Blade Runner, Ex Machina, and Ghost in the Shell, but its emotional depth and narrative originality make it stand apart as a defining work of 21st century science fiction. The world building in Mickey 17 also deserves particular praise. Niflheim is not portrayed as a glamorous sci-fi utopia, but as a cold industrial wasteland, a visual metaphor for humanity's detachment from nature and emotion. The colony's architecture, with its endless corridors and geometric symmetry, evokes a sense of confinement and control. Bong's attention to detail ensures that every element of the set design contributes to the story's themes. Even the technology, though advanced, feels grimy and worn, reflecting the exhaustion of a civilization that has pushed itself to the brink of moral collapse. The result is a world that feels eerily plausible, a future not far removed from our own. At its core, Mickey 17 is a story about selfhood and sacrifice. The title character's journey becomes a metaphor for humanity's struggle to maintain identity and compassion in a mechanized world. As Mickey's clones accumulate, he begins to question whether his memories truly belong to him or are merely echoes programmed into his brain. The tension between body and mind, between continuity and change, drives the film's emotional power. When Mickey 17 ultimately faces his next iteration, he must decide whether to embrace his replacement or fight for the authenticity of his existence. This climactic confrontation, both literal and philosophical, captures the film's essence. That being human is not defined by perfection or immortality, but by impermanence and self-awareness. Visually, emotionally, and intellectually, Mickey 17 transcends conventional sci-fi storytelling. Bong Joon-ho uses the futuristic premise as a lens to explore timeless human questions. Just as Parasite dissected class inequality, Mickey 17 dissects the commodification of life itself. The film forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about how society values or devalues human existence in the pursuit of progress. Its ending, ambiguous yet deeply moving, leaves audiences reflecting on the cyclical nature of life and death. Life and death. Bong Joon-ho's direction in Mickey 17 represents the evolution of a filmmaker who has consistently blurred the lines between genre, philosophy, and emotion. Known for his ability to infuse socio-political commentary into cinematic spectacle, Bong's vision for Mickey 17 elevates science fiction beyond futuristic aesthetics into the realm of profound human reflection. Every frame of the film bears the mark of a director who understands not only the mechanics of storytelling, but the deeper moral and existential questions that give stories lasting impact. His meticulous direction transforms Edward Ashton's cerebral novel Mickey 7 into a cinematic odyssey about mortality, identity, and the dehumanizing consequences of technological advancement. In the hands of a lesser director, this material could have easily become cold or mechanical. Under Bong's mastery, it becomes a living, breathing reflection of humanity's inner contradictions. Bong Joon-ho's directorial style in Mickey 17 is immediately recognizable. His signature balance of humor, tragedy, and absurdity is woven through every scene. He constructs a world that feels both alien and familiar, a futuristic colony whose rigid hierarchy and exploitation echo the worst aspects of modern society. His visual and thematic approach draws clear parallels between the distant planet of Niflheim and the real-world systems of capitalism and inequality. Like in Snowpiercer and Parasite, Bong builds a closed, oppressive world governed by survival and class division. Yet, in Mickey 17, his perspective broadens. He no longer confines the struggle to Earth, but extends it into the cosmos. Humanity's air, greed, ambition, and moral decay have simply expanded into space, and Bong captures that evolution with chilling precision. One of Bong's greatest strengths as a director is his ability to orchestrate tone. In Mickey 17, he maneuvers effortlessly between dark comedy, emotional intimacy, and philosophical grandeur. The film opens with a sequence of Mickey's cloning process, clinical, sterile, and quietly horrifying. But moments later, Bong introduces a scene of absurd humor, where Mickey, recently resurrected, complains about the cafeteria food or jokes about dying, only slightly better this time. This juxtaposition of tragedy and levity is quintessential. Bong Joon-ho, it disarms the audience, making them laugh moments after they've flinched. It's a directorial strategy that mirrors the absurdity of existence itself, finding humor in hopelessness, laughter in the void. Bong uses this tonal elasticity not as a gimmick, but as a mirror to human resilience. In a world where death is routine, humor becomes the last act of rebellion. Visually, Bong Joon-ho brings his world to life with an almost painterly eye. His collaboration with cinematographer Hong Kyung-pyo results in a film that feels like a moving work of art. The camera glides through metallic corridors and frozen landscapes with deliberate rhythm, emphasizing both the beauty and suffocation of Niflheim. Bong uses light and shadow not only to establish mood, but to communicate the story's themes. When Mickey walks through the colony, harsh white lights bathe him in artificial clarity, suggesting the surveillance and control that dominate his life. In contrast, scenes of memory or emotional connection are drenched in warmth, soft golden tones that evoke the nostalgia of a world that no longer exists. This visual contrast reinforces the film's central dichotomy, the cold, mechanical future versus the fading warmth of humanity. Bong's direction also thrives in his command of detail. He constructs Niflheim not as a fantasy backdrop, but as a living, breathing ecosystem. From the design of the cloning chambers to the uniforms worn by the colony's workers, every element serves a narrative function. The machinery hums with unsettling familiarity, the kind of industrial noise that feels both advanced and primitive. Even the colony's social structure is meticulously realized. Workers live in compact metal units, while the elite occupy glass-paneled towers overlooking the frozen wasteland. Through these visuals, Bong doesn't just create a sci-fi world. He creates a moral landscape, where power and privilege define existence as much as oxygen and gravity. Bong's narrative direction in Mickey 17 reflects his lifelong fascination with duality and repetition. Throughout his career, he has explored characters who live double lives or occupy conflicting moral spaces. Think of the wealthy and poor families in Parasite, or the oppressed and privileged passengers in Snowpiercer. In Mickey 17, this duality becomes literal. Mickey's clones are physical manifestations of identity crisis. Each one believes it is the real Mickey, yet all share the same memories. Bong explores this multiplicity through inventive visual cues, mirrors, reflections, and overlapping dialogues where two Mickeys finish each other's sentences. These moments are disorienting yet mesmerizing, reflecting Bong's mastery of psychological storytelling. He doesn't merely depict cloning as a scientific concept, he uses it as a metaphor for human repetition, routine, and the loss of individuality in modern society. What truly sets Bong apart from other directors is his ability to blend genres without losing thematic coherence. Mickey 17 is at once a sci-fi epic, a dark comedy, a philosophical drama, and a psychological thriller. Under most filmmakers, such fusion would feel chaotic, but Bong orchestrates it with surgical precision. Each shift in tone serves a purpose. The humor relieves tension, the drama builds empathy, the surreal imagery deepens understanding. Bong's films often resist classification because they operate on multiple levels simultaneously. Mickey 17 is not simply about cloning, it's about capitalism's commodification of life, the erosion of self in a world of constant replacement, and the absurdity of existence in a system that values efficiency over empathy. This thematic richness is the hallmark of Bong's direction. His stories are never confined to one idea. They are galaxies of interconnected meaning. In directing Robert Pattinson, Bong brings out one of the actor's most nuanced performances to date. Pattinson has long been drawn to complex, tortured roles, the lighthouse good time tenet. But under Bong's direction, he achieves something deeper, a portrayal that is both detached and heartbreakingly human. Bong allows long stretches of silence where Pattinson's expressions do the storytelling, a slight tremor in his breath, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. These subtleties convey more than dialogue ever could. Bong's patience as a director gives the performance space to breathe, making the audience feel Mickey's existential fatigue. In one scene, Mickey stares at a wall filled with old photographs, uncertain whether the memories they represent belong to him or one of his predecessors. Bong holds the shot for an agonizingly long time, forcing the audience to confront the same uncertainty. It's a small moment, but one that encapsulates the film's entire philosophy. Another dimension of Bong's visionary direction is his understanding of rhythm and pacing. Mickey 17 doesn't unfold like a conventional Hollywood blockbuster with rapid action beats. Instead, it ebbs and flows like memory itself, moments of quiet contemplation punctuated by bursts of chaos. Bong trusts the intelligence of his audience, allowing them to absorb the philosophical weight of each scene. The film's structure mirrors Mickey's psychological state, fractured, looping, and non-linear. Flashbacks bleed into dreams, which in turn blend with the present reality. This deliberate disorientation is not confusion, it's immersion. Bong wants viewers to feel what Mickey feels, the vertigo of existing in multiple versions of oneself. Bong also directs with empathy. Despite the film's bleak setting and heavy themes, there's an undercurrent of compassion that runs through every frame. He never treats his characters as mere plot devices or symbols. He treats them as flawed, emotional beings navigating an indifferent universe. This empathy extends even to the antagonists. The colony's governor, played by Mark Ruffalo, is portrayed not as a villain but as a man trapped by his own logic, a bureaucrat trying to maintain order in a collapsing world. Bong's direction humanizes him, suggesting that even the enforcers of dehumanization are victims of the same system. This moral complexity is quintessential Bong Joon-ho. No one in his films is purely good or evil. Everyone is a product of their environment. From a technical standpoint, Bong's direction demonstrates impeccable control over every cinematic element. Camera movement, lighting, sound, and editing all serve a singular vision. The editing by Jinmo Yang, who previously worked on Parasite, reflects Bong's rhythmic storytelling style. Cuts are precise and meaningful. Transitions between clones are seamless yet jarring, creating a sense of timeless continuity. The soundscape is meticulously designed to enhance immersion. Every echo in the colony halls, every mechanical hiss, every heartbeat contributes to the film's atmosphere. Bong uses sound as an emotional tool, contrasting sterile machinery with moments of organic noise. Footsteps in the snow, a heartbeat accelerating during resurrection. These details transform the film into a multisensory experience, grounding its abstract ideas in tangible sensations. Bong Joon-ho's direction also excels in his handling of symbolism. Throughout Mickey 17, visual motifs recur. The motif of mirrors, snow, and decay. Snow represents purity and erasure, a blank canvas upon which identity can be rewritten. Mirrors, on the other hand, embody fragmentation and reflection. Each clone sees himself reflected but never whole. Decay symbolizes the moral rot beneath technological progress. Robert Pattinson's performance in Mickey 17 stands as one of the most complex and layered portrayals of his entire career. Known for his fearless selection of psychologically challenging roles, Pattinson brings a unique combination of emotional fragility, existential confusion, and quiet strength to the character of Mickey Barnes, a disposable worker who is repeatedly cloned after death. What makes his performance even more remarkable is that he must play multiple iterations of the same man, each with subtle differences in personality, memory, and emotional evolution. In essence, Pattinson isn't playing one character. He's playing many versions of a single consciousness, each reflecting the cost of immortality and the erosion of self-identity. From the opening act, Pattinson captures the essence of Mickey's hopeless routine. As the 17th iteration, he carries the psychological weight of his predecessors without having experienced their individual deaths. The audience feels the strangeness of his existence, the sense of déjà vu mixed with loss that defines his world. Pattinson's facial expressions and tone show a man both resigned to and questioning his fate. His eyes carry exhaustion beyond physical tiredness, a deep metaphysical fatigue that arises when the boundary between life and death becomes meaningless. Through his minimalist acting, he communicates the horror of a man aware that his life is replaceable, that his death is just another restart in a never-ending cycle. One of the most fascinating aspects of Pattinson's portrayal is how he differentiates between Mickey 17 and his predecessor clones. Each version seems to have slightly different behavioral quirks, speech rhythms, and emotional registers. These differences are crucial in making the audience believe in the continuity of cloning. Pattinson makes sure each version of Mickey is familiar yet not identical. For instance, Mickey 17 might carry a lighter humor or sharper cynicism than Mickey 16, suggesting the subtle influence of his memories and trauma despite the supposed reset after each death. This nuanced performance requires complete control over physicality and expression, something Pattinson delivers with stunning precision. His performance also explores the central philosophical question of Mickey 17. What defines a human being when the body and mind can be replicated? Through his subtle acting, Pattinson draws the audience into Mickey's internal struggle to prove that he is not just a copy, that his emotions, desires, and pain are uniquely his. In scenes where Mickey interacts with others who treat him as expendable, Pattinson balances humility with quiet defiance. There's a haunting moment when he looks at his own dead clone's body, and for a second his face flickers between grief, disgust, and confusion. That moment captures the psychological paradox at the heart of the film. How can someone mourn themselves? Director Bong Joon-ho allows Pattinson to explore the limits of identity through physical and emotional contrast. While Mickey's external world is cold and mechanical, Pattinson's performance adds warmth and humor that make the character relatable. His delivery often switches between sardonic jokes and vulnerable introspection, creating a sense of unpredictability that mirrors the instability of cloning. His humor doesn't feel forced. It's a coping mechanism, a small rebellion against the dehumanizing system that views him as property. Pattinson understands this delicate balance and plays Mickey not as a traditional sci-fi hero, but as an everyman trapped in an absurdly cruel loop. Equally important is Pattinson's chemistry with the rest of the cast. Naomi Ackie's character, who forms an emotional connection with Mickey, becomes the lens through which the audience measures his humanity. Pattinson ensures that their bond feels authentic, despite the unnatural circumstances surrounding his existence. He conveys love and confusion in equal measure, suggesting that even a clone can feel genuine attachment. Their relationship scenes humanize Mickey and deepen the tragedy of his existence. He can love, but he can never truly live freely. From a technical standpoint, Pattinson's dual performance involves both physical acting and digital effects, as some scenes feature multiple Mickeys interacting simultaneously. These sequences highlight his skill in differentiating each clone's body language and tone. It's not just a visual trick, it's an acting challenge. Pattinson's ability to play against himself so convincingly recalls performances like Jake Gyllenhaal in Enemy or Tatiana Maslany in Orphan Black. Yet his approach is distinctively understated and introspective. Rather than exaggerate the differences, he trusts the audience to notice them organically. That confidence elevates his work from mere technical feat to psychological art. Critics have praised how Pattinson brings emotional depth to what could have been a cold, concept-driven film. Instead of leaning into the sci-fi spectacle, he grounds the story in a deeply human performance that invites empathy. His portrayal echoes his earlier roles in The Lighthouse and Good Time, where he portrayed morally ambiguous characters struggling against isolation and madness. In Mickey 17, however, Pattinson takes this archetype to a new existential level. The isolation isn't just social, it's metaphysical. He is alone among versions of himself, and the greatest horror is not dying, but realizing that death no longer means anything. The dual nature of his role also symbolizes the broader themes of capitalism and dehumanization that Bong Joon-ho often explores. Mickey is both worker and product, an infinite laborer whose suffering has been commodified. Pattinson's performance captures this duality through subtle moments of rebellion and tenderness. When he refuses an order or expresses fear, he does so not as a hero but as a man clinging to the last fragments of selfhood. His body language stiffens, his voice cracks slightly, his eyes flicker with defiance, all signs of a consciousness refusing to be erased. Even the way Pattinson modulates his voice adds dimension to the film's psychological complexity. His dialogue delivery often alternates between soft vulnerability and mechanical detachment. At times his voice sounds almost robotic, hinting at the influence of cloning technology. At others it trembles with emotion, reminding the viewer that beneath the layers of artificiality, there's still something profoundly human. This oscillation between human warmth and synthetic emptiness encapsulates the entire tragedy of Mickey's existence. Beyond the acting craft, Pattinson's role in Mickey 17 redefines how modern sci-fi treats identity. Traditionally, clones in cinema are either villains or existential curiosities. But here, Pattinson's Mickey becomes the emotional center, the moral conscience of a future that has forgotten morality. Through his portrayal, cloning becomes a metaphor for how modern systems erase individuality, forcing people to perform endlessly in the same roles without recognition. Mickey's despair mirrors our world's struggle with monotony, consumerism, and burnout. Pattinson embodies this theme with a raw authenticity that makes his character timeless. As the story progresses, Pattinson's dual performance reaches an emotional climax, where Mickey must confront another version of himself directly. The confrontation is not violent but philosophical, a conversation between two beings questioning which of them is real. In this moment, Pattinson delivers one of the film's most haunting monologues, reflecting on memory, mortality, and purpose. His delivery is quiet, almost broken, yet profoundly moving. It's a performance that stays with you long after the credits roll, forcing you to question what it truly means to be alive. In conclusion, Robert Pattinson's work in Mickey 17 is more than a performance. It's an existential study of selfhood and survival. By embodying multiple versions of one man, he turns a sci-fi premise into a deeply emotional journey about the soul's persistence against mechanical repetition. His portrayal captures the beauty and horror of consciousness in a world where life is endlessly replaceable. Through his nuanced expressions, subtle voice shifts, and emotional honesty, Pattinson proves that even in the cold future of cloning, humanity's most powerful weapon remains empathy. The concept of cloning and immortality lies at the very core of Mickey 17, shaping the movie's philosophical foundation and emotional depth. In this futuristic world, humanity has achieved what once seemed impossible, conquering death, at least in a technical sense. Yet, Mickey 17 doesn't present cloning as a triumph of science or a utopian dream. Instead, it exposes the dark underbelly of immortality, showing how the very idea of living forever can erode what it means to be human. Bong Joon-ho, the film's visionary director, uses cloning not as a spectacle but as a metaphor, a mirror reflecting the modern struggle between individuality and utility, between existence and exploitation. Through the story of Mickey, the film explores the horrifying irony that immortality, rather than liberating mankind, can become the most efficient form of enslavement. In the universe of Mickey 17, cloning technology has advanced to the point where death is no longer permanent. When a worker dies, their memories are uploaded into a new body, an identical copy known as a replacement. The process is efficient, emotionless, and entirely institutionalized. Society treats death as a logistical inconvenience rather than a tragic end. This cold normalization of cloning reveals a civilization that has lost touch with the sanctity of life. While earlier science fiction often celebrated immortality as humanity's ultimate evolution, Mickey 17 dismantles that ideal by showing the psychological and moral consequences of living in a system where human lives are infinitely renewable and therefore infinitely disposable. The main character, Mickey, embodies the existential horror of this system. He is not a scientist or a leader, he's a laborer, one of many expendables used for dangerous missions on distant planets. When he dies, a new clone takes his place, each carrying the memories of the previous version. On the surface, this seems like immortality. Mickey never truly dies. But Bong Joon-ho subverts this illusion. Each cloned version of Mickey inherits not only memories but also fragments of trauma, confusion, and fatigue. Over time, the line between the original and the copies blurs until there's no clear distinction between who he was and what he has become. This endless cycle transforms immortality into a curse, an eternal repetition of pain and meaninglessness. The film raises a profound question. If consciousness can be copied, does it remain the same person? Bong Joon-ho doesn't offer a clear answer. Instead, he invites the audience to wrestle with the paradox. Mickey 17 and his predecessors share the same memories, yet they are distinct beings. Each clone awakens believing it is the real Mickey, unaware or in denial of the fact that others before him have died. The continuity of memory gives the illusion of selfhood, but the loss of biological continuity fractures it. In essence, the film suggests that immortality achieved through cloning may preserve memory, but not the soul. It's a chilling reflection on how technology can replicate form without preserving essence, echoing the ancient philosophical fear that in trying to become gods, humans might erase their humanity. From a thematic standpoint, Mickey 17 connects cloning to the capitalist idea of replaceability. Just as workers in a corporation can be fired and replaced without consequence, Mickey's clones represent the ultimate expression of that logic. When life itself becomes renewable, individuality loses value. The corporate and military powers in the film exploit this technology, not to advance humanity, but to maintain control and efficiency. Mickey isn't immortal in the glorious sense. He's trapped in an infinite labor cycle where even death offers no escape. This transforms cloning from a scientific miracle into a symbol of oppression. Bong Joon-ho's commentary is unmistakable. Immortality, when controlled by systems of power, becomes the perfect mechanism of exploitation. Cloning also challenges the traditional concept of identity. In the real world, we define ourselves through continuity. Our past experiences, emotions, and physical existence form an unbroken narrative that shapes who we are. In Mickey 17, that continuity is shattered. Each clone resumes life as if nothing has changed, but deep within, the memory of past deaths lingers like a ghost. This fractured continuity creates a haunting psychological tension. If you can die and return endlessly, what does self even mean? The film visualizes this confusion through surreal and disorienting imagery, mirrors that reflect multiple versions of Mickey, overlapping voices of past iterations, and dream sequences where Mickey confronts earlier copies of himself. These moments capture the torment of a consciousness that has become both infinite and meaningless. The movie's exploration of immortality also delves into moral and ethical dimensions. It forces viewers to question whether humanity should pursue eternal life simply because it can. The scientists and leaders in Mickey 17 believe they have conquered nature, but the result is a hollow victory. Without mortality, life loses its urgency and purpose. The fear of death has always been a driving force behind art, love, and progress. Once that fear disappears, so does passion. Mickey's journey illustrates this perfectly. The longer he lives through clones, the more he detaches from emotional reality. He begins to question not only his own existence, but also the moral legitimacy of a world that sees death as a temporary inconvenience. His immortality becomes an endless loop of suffering, where he cannot die yet cannot truly live. Philosophically, Bong Joon-ho uses cloning to confront the ancient human obsession with immortality. Seen in myths from Gilgamesh to Frankenstein, throughout history mankind has sought ways to defy death, through religion, art, or science, but Mickey 17 presents this pursuit as inherently self-destructive. When humans remove death from the equation of life, they also erase meaning. The cycle of life and death defines humanity's emotional core. Remove one and the other collapses. The clones in the movie are physical shells carrying remnants of memory, but devoid of spiritual continuity. This depiction echoes existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, who argued that meaning arises from the finite nature of existence. In a world without death, Mickey 17 shows there can be no true life. The film's portrayal of cloning also ties into modern anxieties about technology, artificial intelligence, and the commodification of human experience. Just as AI learns and replicates human behavior, the cloning system in Mickey 17 imitates humanity without fully understanding it. This imitation becomes a metaphor for how technology, despite mimicking consciousness, lacks emotion and moral depth. Bong Joon-ho's world feels eerily plausible, a society where human essence has been digitized and standardized. The unsettling part isn't the technology itself, but how casually humanity accepts it. This complacency mirrors our real-world dependence on technology, where we trade privacy, individuality, and emotional depth for convenience and control. The emotional weight of cloning is amplified through Mickey's gradual awareness of his condition. At first, he believes in the illusion of immortality, that he is continuing his life uninterrupted. But as fragments of past memories surface, he realizes the horrifying truth. He has died countless times. Each death, each replacement chips away at his sense of self. What began as a miracle of science turns into an existential nightmare. His immortality becomes indistinguishable from eternal punishment. In this way, Mickey 17 draws parallels to Greek myths like Prometheus and Sisyphus, figures condemned to repeat their suffering for eternity. Mickey, too, is trapped in repetition, his immortality serving as both his gift and his curse. Visually, Bong Joon-ho enhances these themes through striking cinematography. The cloning facilities are cold and sterile, filled with machines that erase individuality. Every aspect of the process feels mechanical and devoid of empathy, reinforcing the dehumanizing nature of immortality in this world. In contrast, the rare scenes where Mickey experiences genuine emotion, like moments of humor, fear, or love, are shot with warmth and intimacy. This visual contrast underscores the tension between artificial eternity and fleeting human emotion. Immortality, as depicted in Mickey 17, is not vibrant or glorious. It is pale, mechanical, and suffocating. By the end of the film, cloning and immortality cease to represent scientific progress. They become symbols of humanity's greatest philosophical failure. Mickey's story forces us to confront the question, is it truly living if life has no end? Bong Joon-ho doesn't condemn science but warns of its misuse. He suggests that technology is only as moral as the people who wield it. The tragedy of Mickey 17 isn't that humans discovered how to conquer death. It's that they did so without understanding life. Immortality becomes the ultimate illusion, the promise of endless existence that strips existence of meaning. In conclusion, Mickey 17 transforms the concept of cloning and immortality into a haunting allegory for modern existence. It warns that the quest to live forever can lead to spiritual extinction. Through Mickey's endless cycle of death and rebirth, the film exposes the paradox of immortality. By refusing to die, humanity forgets how to live. The cloning technology that was meant to preserve life instead becomes a tool for dehumanization, leaving behind only mechanical shadows of what once made us human. Bong Joon-ho's vision is both poetic and terrifying. In the future, immortality may not be a blessing from the gods, but the coldest prison ever built by man. Naomi Ackie's presence in Mickey 17 adds an emotional and moral balance to a film dominated by existential questions and technological despair. While Robert Pattinson's Mickey anchors the narrative through his inner turmoil and philosophical reflections, Ackie's character, who represents love, conscience, and human resilience, brings warmth to an otherwise cold, mechanized universe. Her role is not just supportive in the traditional sense, she is the emotional axis around which the story's heart beats. Through her nuanced performance, Ackie transforms her character from a background figure into the embodiment of empathy in a world that has forgotten its meaning. Alongside her, the supporting cast deepens the world's authenticity, portraying the hierarchy, greed, and quiet rebellion that define Bong Joon-ho's dystopian society. Naomi Ackie's character, known in the film as Nia, Mickey's partner, serves multiple symbolic functions. On one level, she's the grounding force in Mickey's life, the only person who sees the man beneath the clone. On another, she represents the persistence of human love and compassion in an age where everything, even life, is disposable. Her relationship with Mickey is both intimate and tragic, built on the understanding that she loves a man who may not even be the same individual from one day to the next. This emotional paradox creates a constant tension. Is she in love with Mickey or with the memory of who he once was? Ackie captures this ambiguity beautifully, balancing tenderness with quiet sorrow. Her eyes often communicate what words cannot, a yearning for connection in a world that has turned love into a luxury. What makes Akkie's performance particularly compelling is its subtlety. She doesn't play Nia as a victim of circumstance, but as a quietly defiant figure who refuses to let technology define her understanding of humanity. Her interactions with Mickey often oscillate between affection and confrontation. In one powerful scene, she challenges Mickey's acceptance of his own replaceability, asking him whether he believes his memories make him real or if he's just pretending to be the man she once loved. Akkie's delivery in this moment is both gentle and devastating, her tone filled with heartbreak and truth. It's in scenes like these that the audience sees the soul of Mickey 17, not in its grand ideas about cloning and immortality, but in its portrayal of love's struggle to survive amid dehumanization. Aki's chemistry with Robert Pattinson is the emotional core of the film. Their relationship anchors the narrative in human emotion, grounding the philosophical and scientific elements in something deeply relatable. Despite the futuristic setting, their bond feels timeless, rooted in the same struggles that define all love stories: trust, memory, and the fear of loss. Pattinson's fractured identity as a clone finds its only stability in Nia's affection, while Aki's character becomes his moral compass. She reminds him, and by extension the audience, that what makes us human isn't our memories or bodies, but our capacity to feel and care. This emotional dynamic provides relief from the movie's heavy existential tone, making the story resonate beyond its sci-fi framework. Aki's portrayal also ties into the film's critique of gender and power. While Mickey is trapped in a system that commodifies his life, Nia must navigate a world that commodifies emotion itself. Her compassion, her loyalty, her love, all are treated as secondary to survival. Yet Aki plays her with quiet strength, embodying resistance without overt rebellion. She symbolizes the endurance of empathy in a time when empathy is obsolete. Bong Joon-ho has always been adept at crafting strong, multidimensional female characters, from Parasite to Snowpiercer, and Nia fits that tradition perfectly. She is both fragile and formidable, a reminder that in the face of mechanized cruelty, the human heart remains the last frontier of defiance. The supporting cast of Mickey 17 complements Aki's emotional gravitas, each character adding texture to Bong Joon-ho's layered world. Steven Yeun, known for his nuanced roles in Minari and Nope, plays a commanding officer with a morally ambiguous stance. His character, Captain Howell, is both mentor and manipulator, a man torn between duty and conscience. Yoon's subtle performance mirrors the film's central tension, the conflict between human empathy and systemic obedience. His scenes with Pattinson crackle with unspoken power dynamics, revealing how authority and guilt coexist in a world built on moral compromise. Mark Ruffalo delivers a haunting portrayal as Dr. Lark, the scientist responsible for overseeing the cloning process. Ruffalo's character is not a villain in the traditional sense. He believes he's serving progress, yet he embodies the blindness of scientific hubris. His calm rationalizations of human cloning, delivered with gentle authority, make his character all the more disturbing. Ruffalo's restrained energy creates a chilling contrast to the emotional chaos surrounding Mickey and Nia. His interactions with Aki's character further highlight the moral divide between compassion and control. In one particularly tense exchange, Nia accuses him of playing God, to which he coldly replies, "Someone has to." It's a moment that captures the arrogance of a civilization that mistakes domination for enlightenment. Toni Collette, as Governor Harland, adds another layer of complexity to the film. Her character represents the political power behind the scientific system, a leader who views human cloning as an economic solution rather than an ethical dilemma. Colette's performance is sharp, calculated, and unnervingly charismatic. She doesn't shout or rage. Her authority lies in her composure. Through her, Bong Joon-ho critiques how political leaders often justify inhuman practices in the name of progress. Colette's Governor Harland embodies that chilling calm of bureaucracy, the kind that destroys lives not out of malice but out of indifference. Her scenes with Aki reveal the deep contrast between two forms of power: institutional control versus emotional truth. Even the smaller supporting roles in Mickey 17 contribute meaningfully to the film's world building. Each character, no matter how brief their appearance, reflects a different aspect of this dystopian society. The engineers who maintain the cloning machines, the workers who treat clones as property, the rebels who whisper about resistance, all serve as fragments of a larger moral mosaic. Bong Joon-ho uses these characters not as filler but as mirrors for the film's central themes. They demonstrate how an entire civilization can adapt to moral decay when it becomes normalized. Every minor role adds weight to the film's emotional and philosophical impact. Naomi Aki's performance stands out because it humanizes the abstract. In a story about clones, immortality, and identity, she reminds the audience that emotion is still the ultimate truth. Her presence transforms the film from a cerebral exploration of technology into a deeply human story about connection, memory, and loss. Without her, Mickey 17 would risk becoming too detached, an intellectual exercise in science fiction. With her, it becomes something much more profound, a reflection on love's ability to endure even when the meaning of life itself collapses. Aki's portrayal also reinforces Bong Joon-ho's recurring theme of empathy as resistance. Just as Parasite exposed class inequality through emotional realism, Mickey 17 exposes technological tyranny through the persistence of love. Aki's character doesn't rebel with violence or power. She rebels with compassion. In a world where death means nothing, love becomes the only thing that still costs something. Her unwavering belief in Mickey's humanity, even when the system insists he's just another copy, becomes the film's quiet revolution. By the film's conclusion, Aki's Nia emerges as more than a love interest. She becomes the moral center of the story. Her arc parallels Mickey's but resolves in a different way. Where he questions his identity, she reaffirms hers through love and courage. In the final scenes, her choices define the emotional climax of the film, turning what could have been a cold ending into something profoundly moving. Her final gesture toward Mickey, whether it's a touch, a word, or a look, encapsulates the entire message of Mickey 17, that even in a future built on replication, the genuine emotion between two beings cannot be cloned. In conclusion, Naomi Ackie and the supporting cast of Mickey 17 are essential in shaping the film's balance between intellect and emotion. Akkie's soulful performance provides the warmth that anchors the movie's existential themes, while actors like Yoon, Ruffalo, and Colette give depth to the moral landscape surrounding her. Together they transform Bong Joon-ho's world from a sterile thought experiment into a living, breathing story about love, identity, and resistance. Through their collective performances, Mickey 17 becomes not just a film about cloning, it becomes a story about what it means to feel human in a world that has forgotten how. One of the most remarkable achievements of Mickey 17 is how effortlessly it fuses dark humor with deep existential philosophy. Bong Joon-ho, known for his uncanny ability to balance tonal opposites, turns what could have been a bleak, purely cerebral science fiction story into an emotionally engaging and often disturbingly funny exploration of life, death, and meaning. The film's humor doesn't come from slapstick or absurdity alone. It arises from the absurd reality of its world. In a society where dying is routine and clones are mass-produced, the characters' attempts to find purpose and individuality are both tragic and strangely comical. Through this tonal duality, Mickey 17 achieves what few sci-fi films manage. It makes us laugh while simultaneously forcing us to confront our deepest fears about existence. Bong Joon-ho's trademark style has always been his ability to weave humor into darkness without diminishing the gravity of his subject matter. In Parasite, laughter coexisted with class tragedy. In Snowpiercer, absurdity highlighted social collapse. In Mickey 17, humor becomes a philosophical tool, a means of coping with the unbearable. The film's protagonist, Mickey, dies repeatedly and returns in cloned form each time. His situation is horrifying on paper, yet the way he processes it, through sarcasm, wit, and grim acceptance, creates a strange sense of irony. The audience finds itself laughing not at his suffering, but with him, as he navigates an existence so absurd it becomes almost comical. His dark jokes about death, his cynical one-liners about cloning, and his resigned attitude toward mortality serve as survival mechanisms, illustrating how humor becomes the last defense of the human spirit. The film's humor is deeply character-driven. Robert Pattinson delivers his lines with a dry, almost deadpan tone that contrasts beautifully with the gravity of his situation. In one memorable moment, after being told he'll be replaced yet again, Mickey quips, "Good thing I've had practice dying." It's funny, but the laughter it provokes is uneasy, laced with existential dread. This kind of humor forces the audience to engage with discomfort. It reflects how real humans cope with trauma, by joking about it. The comedy doesn't undercut the emotion, it deepens it, showing that in a world stripped of meaning, irony is the last refuge of sanity. Bong Joon-ho's script walks a razor's edge between satire and tragedy. The humor often emerges from the bureaucratic indifference surrounding cloning. In one scene, a corporate official casually informs Mickey that his death costs less than a lunch ration. The absurdity of treating mortality as paperwork is both hilarious and horrifying. It's a critique of how modern institutions, whether corporate, governmental, or scientific, reduce human life to numbers and efficiency metrics. Bong's genius lies in letting the audience laugh at this absurdity, while realizing how close it feels to our own world. The laughter sticks in your throat because it's rooted in recognition. Dark humor in Mickey 17 also serves to expose the hollowness of immortality. The characters live in a world where nothing truly ends, so they joke about death the way we joke about taxes or traffic. Their casualness toward mortality is unsettling, yet believable. It's a commentary on desensitization, how even the most profound experiences can lose meaning when repeated endlessly. Bong uses humor as a mirror, reflecting our current culture's obsession with productivity, convenience, and technological immortality. When everything can be fixed or replaced, even death becomes mundane. Mickey's sarcastic outlook is not just personality, it's a symptom of a world that has lost its sense of awe and tragedy. Another layer of humor arises from the film's absurdist tone, reminiscent of works by Kafka, Terry Gilliam, and Charlie Kaufman. The bureaucracy of cloning is portrayed with almost comedic precision. Long queues of identical workers waiting for their memory uploads, corporate slogans celebrating forever efficiency, and advertisements promoting death insurance all feel ridiculous yet chillingly possible. These moments of satire reveal how institutions manipulate the language of progress to disguise exploitation. The humor functions as both entertainment and critique, inviting the audience to question the systems that define their own lives. Naomi Ackie's character, Nia, contributes to the humor in a more subtle, human way. Her dry exchanges with Mickey often provide levity amid the existential weight. Their relationship, while emotionally charged, is peppered with sarcastic banter that reflects real intimacy. When she teases Mickey about being the 17th version and still bad at cooking, the humor feels genuine, grounding the film's cosmic themes in small, relatable details. Bong Joon-ho uses these domestic moments as comedic relief, reminding us that even in dystopian futures, love and laughter persist as quiet forms of rebellion. Bong's visual direction also supports the film's darkly humorous tone. The production design blends sleek futuristic minimalism with mundane corporate aesthetics. Brightly lit cloning labs that look like fast food kitchens, cheerful AI assistants that advertise death-free living, and sterile environments filled with motivational posters about efficiency. These visual contrasts create an ironic tension between the horror of cloning and the cheerfulness of corporate propaganda. It's as if the film itself is laughing at the absurdity of its own world. Bong Joon-ho has an unmatched talent for using visuals as humor, juxtaposing the tragic with the trivial, until the audience can't help but laugh at the sheer madness of it all. Underneath the humor, however, lies profound philosophical inquiry. Mickey 17 asks whether laughter can coexist with meaning in a world where meaning has been industrialized. Mickey's jokes are funny because they mask pain. His humor is a form of rebellion against despair. Bong suggests that irony might be the only way to survive in an absurd universe. This aligns with the existential philosophy of Albert Camus, who argued in The Myth of Sisyphus that humans must imagine Sisyphus happy as he endlessly pushes his boulder uphill. Like Sisyphus, Mickey repeats the same cycle of life and death, and his laughter becomes his act of defiance. He cannot change his fate, but he can choose how to respond to it, and that choice, that laughter, is what makes him human. The philosophical depth of the film emerges most powerfully in moments where humor and tragedy overlap completely. When Mickey confronts his own previous clone and jokes about how they don't make me like they used to, the scene is absurdly funny yet deeply unsettling. The two versions of Mickey argue, bicker, and mock each other like siblings, but beneath the laughter lies the terror of self-confrontation. Who is the real Mickey? Which one deserves to live? The comedy of identity becomes a vehicle for exploring the film's deepest themes: the nature of consciousness, the illusion of continuity, and the tragedy of being endlessly replaceable. Even the film's pacing reflects this interplay between humor and thought. Bong alternates between high-tension sequences and moments of ironic stillness. Just when the audience begins to feel overwhelmed by the philosophical implications of cloning, a humorous line or absurd situation cuts the tension, reminding us that even in despair, there's room for absurdity. This rhythm mirrors life itself, a series of tragic and ridiculous moments strung together in chaotic balance. The laughter doesn't diminish the tragedy, it makes it bearable. Bong Joon-ho's mastery lies in using humor as both a shield and a weapon. It shields the audience from despair while also exposing the hypocrisy of a world obsessed with progress at the cost of morality. By making us laugh at death, he reveals how easily we can become complicit in dehumanization. The laughter feels dangerous, as if it's pulling us deeper into the very system we're supposed to critique. This self-aware irony is what gives Mickey 17 its unique tone. It's not just funny or tragic, it's tragicomically true. The supporting characters amplify this dark humor through their indifference. Mark Ruffalo's Dr. Lark, for example, cracks jokes about the efficiency of cloning while ignoring the ethical horror behind it. His humor is chilling precisely because it's unfeeling. Similarly, the corporate overseer's cheerful slogans about eternal productivity feel like punchlines from a dystopian comedy. Bong uses this institutional humor to expose how systems of control hide cruelty behind optimism. It's the same tactic used in Snowpiercer's happy train metaphor or Parasite's satirical portrayal of the upper class. Humor as camouflage for horror. By blending dark comedy with existential philosophy, Mickey 17 becomes more than a science fiction movie. It becomes a meditation on the absurdity of being alive. Bong Joon-ho doesn't ask us to laugh at suffering. He asks us to see that laughter is part of surviving it. The humor doesn't trivialize death, it humanizes it. It reminds us that even in a world of clones, where identity can be copied and life can be rebooted, the ability to laugh at one's own misfortune is something that can never be replicated. In a sense, humor becomes the last proof of humanity. In conclusion, Mickey 17 uses dark humor not as decoration, but as philosophy. Bong Joon-ho turns laughter into a tool for existential reflection, showing how irony and absurdity can reveal truths that pure seriousness cannot. The film's balance between comedy and despair reflects the contradictions of modern existence, where progress and meaninglessness coexist, where death is both a joke and a tragedy. By blending the hilarious with the profound, Mickey 17 redefines what science fiction can be. Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17 is not only a triumph of storytelling, but also a visual and cinematic marvel that redefines how science fiction is presented on screen. Every frame of the film is crafted with precision, reflecting Bong's obsessive attention to detail and his understanding of how visual design can enhance narrative depth. The movie's aesthetic is a fusion of minimalism, industrial realism, and surreal futurism, a combination that mirrors its thematic duality between humanity and technology, mortality and immortality, identity and replication. The visual world of Mickey 17 feels at once familiar and alien, intimate yet infinite, and that paradox is what makes it so mesmerizing. From the opening sequence, Bong establishes his visual language with breathtaking control. The film begins with a cold, sterile environment, white walls, metallic reflections, and a chilling absence of natural color. The cloning facility, where Mickey's body is manufactured and restored, is depicted like a futuristic factory. The lighting here is harsh, unflinching, and uncomfortably clean, emphasizing the mechanical nature of rebirth. Yet within this sterile perfection, Bong introduces small imperfections. A flicker in the lights, condensation on glass, a scratch on a steel table. These details humanize the setting, reminding us that even in a world built on precision, decay still lurks beneath the surface. The aesthetic suggests a future that tries to transcend mortality, but can never escape it completely. Cinematographer Darius Kanji, known for his work on films like Seven and Uncut Gems, collaborates with Bong to create a visual experience that feels tactile and immersive. Kanji's use of high-contrast lighting gives the film a sense of weight and dimension. He alternates between soft atmospheric light for the emotional moments and stark clinical brightness during scenes of technological control. This contrast highlights the dual existence of Mickey himself, the man versus the clone, the emotion versus the machinery. The cinematography becomes an extension of the story's psychological conflict. The film's color palette evolves throughout the narrative to reflect Mickey's journey of self-realization. The early scenes are dominated by whites, grays, and silvers, colors of sterility and conformity. As Mickey begins to question his identity, warmer tones subtly infiltrate the frame. Hints of gold, rust, and crimson appear in unexpected places. A reflection on a glass surface, the glow of a control panel, or the warmth of human skin under artificial light. By the film's final act, these colors bloom into full vibrancy, symbolizing Mickey's awakening to his individuality. Bong and Konji use color as emotional storytelling, where hues are not merely visual choices, but psychological expressions of the protagonist's evolution. The production design, led by Fiona Crombie, further deepens the visual storytelling. The world of Mickey 17 is one of contrasts. Hyper-advanced technology exists alongside decay, luxury beside deprivation. The cityscapes are vast yet oppressive, filled with neon advertisements promoting immortality, while beneath them lie decaying districts where older clones are discarded like obsolete devices. This vertical layering of society, gleaming towers above, forgotten ruins below, serves as a visual metaphor for the moral hierarchy of the world. The rich live among the stars, selling eternal life, while the poor live in the shadows, haunted by the ghosts of their own replacements. Bong Joon-ho's direction uses the camera not just to capture space, but to define emotion. His signature long takes, slow pans, and carefully composed symmetrical shots give Mickey 17 a painterly quality. Each shot feels meticulously designed, yet never static. Bong balances stillness and motion in a way that mirrors the theme of repetition versus individuality. When Mickey wakes up in his clone body, the camera lingers on his face, unmoving, as if time itself is frozen. But when he rebels against his fate, the camera moves with restless energy, handheld, fluid, almost chaotic, reflecting his psychological transformation. One of the most visually stunning sequences in the film is the memory synchronization scene. As Mickey's consciousness is transferred into his new body, Bong employs a combination of practical effects, digital imagery, and symbolic abstraction. The scene begins with a flicker of static, then dissolves into a cascade of fragmented memories, childhood flashes, laughter, pain, all swirling through a liquid interface of light. The visuals resemble a blend of data and emotion, like an electric storm of identity. The use of slow motion and reflective surfaces gives this sequence a poetic rhythm, blurring the line between science and spirituality. It's one of those rare cinematic moments where technology becomes art, a visual symphony of rebirth and existential dread. Bong Joon-ho's use of spatial design and framing also adds philosophical weight to the film's visuals. Characters are often positioned within frames that dwarf them. Gigantic machines, massive corridors, and endless hallways dominate the compositions. This visual choice reflects Mickey's smallness in a system that controls every aspect of his existence. Yet Bong occasionally breaks this pattern with intimate close-ups, moments when Mickey confronts his own reflection, or when he experiences genuine emotion. In these instances, the frame tightens, the light softens, and the mechanical hum fades away. The transition from vastness to intimacy mirrors the film's central conflict, the struggle of a human soul trapped within an industrial process. Another striking visual element is Bong's integration of organic textures within technological settings. The film frequently juxtaposes synthetic and natural imagery, metallic walls covered in moss, water droplets running down steel, digital screens flickering like candlelight. This blending of organic and artificial imagery evokes the tension between humanity and machine. It suggests that no matter how far technology advances, the human essence, messy, emotional, unpredictable, will always seep through the cracks. The film's visuals are constantly negotiating this balance between perfection and imperfection, eternity and decay. The costume design, created by Catherine George, complements the film's visual philosophy. Mickey's uniforms evolve throughout the movie, reflecting his internal rebellion. In the beginning, his clothing is clean, minimalist, and identical to that of every other clone. Gray tones, functional fabrics, and no individuality. As he begins to question his purpose, his attire subtly changes. Wrinkled collars, scuffed boots, traces of blood, and personalized accessories. These changes might seem minor, but they visually chart Mickey's emotional journey. By the climax, his costume looks lived in and human, contrasting with the pristine clones around him. Costume becomes character. Bong Joon-ho's editing choices also enhance the visual impact of Mickey 17. Editor Yang Jin-mo employs rhythm as a storytelling device, alternating between long contemplative shots and sudden kinetic bursts of energy. This dynamic pacing mirrors the narrative tension between control and chaos. When Mickey is confined within the system, the cuts are methodical and mechanical, When he breaks free, the editing becomes erratic and raw. The visuals and editing merge into a single emotional pulse, guiding the viewer through Mickey's psychological evolution without the need for words. Sound design and visuals work hand in hand to amplify the aesthetic experience. The hum of machinery, the hiss of airlocks, and the faint echo of footsteps create a soundscape that feels tangible and oppressive. Combined with Konji's lighting, it immerses the audience in a world that feels both distant and uncomfortably real. Bong's choice to pair sterile visuals with hauntingly human sounds, breathing whispers, heartbeats creates an eerie dissonance that reinforces the film's themes of life and artificiality. The film's visual effects deserve special mention. Unlike many sci-fi films that rely on overwhelming CGI, Mickey 17 uses digital effects sparingly and purposefully. Bong prefers invisible effects, enhancements that serve the story rather than distract from it. The cloning process, for example, is portrayed through subtle distortions, glimmers of light, and organic motion rather than flashy spectacle. This restraint gives the film a grounded, believable quality. The few grand-scale sequences, like the descent into the reactor or the citywide blackout, are visually breathtaking, yet emotionally resonant. Always tethered to Mickey's perspective, symbolism permeates the visual style. Mirrors, reflections, and duplications appear throughout the film, reinforcing the theme of identity fragmentation. In several key scenes, Mickey's face is reflected in multiple surfaces: glass, metal, water. Each reflection slightly distorted, suggesting the instability of self. The camera often lingers on these reflections just long enough for the viewer to feel uneasy, blurring the line between the real and the replica. Bong uses these motifs to turn visuals into philosophy. The image itself becomes a meditation on what it means to be human. In the final act, the visual style undergoes a dramatic transformation. The sterile, monochromatic world gives way to a palette of rich, emotional colors. The lighting becomes warmer, shadows deeper, and the camera movement more organic. As Mickey embraces his individuality and defies his programmed purpose, the visuals follow suit. Freer, more expressive, more alive. The visual evolution mirrors the narrative arc perfectly, turning aesthetics into emotion. Ultimately, Mickey 17's visual aesthetics and cinematic style are not just about beauty. The world of Mickey 17 stands as one of the most immersive and intricately constructed sci-fi environments ever envisioned for the big screen. Bong Joon-ho, known for his meticulous storytelling and layered cinematic universes, crafts a setting that feels both futuristic and alarmingly plausible. The film's world-building is not just about visual spectacle or advanced technology. It is about constructing a believable social, political, and philosophical ecosystem where every detail, from architecture to propaganda, serves a narrative purpose. Mickey 17 doesn't just show us the future. It invites us to live inside it, to breathe its cold air and to feel the existential unease that comes with technological perfection. At its core, the film's universe revolves around the concept of reconstruction through cloning. Humanity has reached a stage where death is no longer permanent, and the boundaries between life, identity, and machinery have blurred. The cloning technology is the backbone of this society, a system that promises immortality, but at the cost of individuality. Bong Joon-ho's approach to world-building starts here, building out an entire civilization structured around this single innovation. Everything in the film, from economics to architecture, from daily life to religion, revolves around cloning as both miracle and curse. The film's setting is divided into two major spheres: the colonial habitat and the outer zone. The habitat represents the core of civilization, a sprawling city where the wealthy and powerful live in artificial comfort. Towering structures rise into the clouds, their surfaces gleaming with neon and holographic advertisements that preach the virtues of eternal life. Streets are spotless, surveillance drones hover silently, and the citizens move with mechanical precision. The city is organized like a machine, every sector assigned to a specific function: biotech labs, data centers, and consumer zones filled with clone-enhancing services. The atmosphere is clean, bright, and suffocatingly ordered. In stark contrast, the outer zone is a decaying wasteland, once part of the same world, now abandoned after centuries of environmental collapse. This region houses the rejects of the cloning system, failed experiments, rogue clones, and those who refuse to participate in the artificial immortality program. The landscape is rugged, scarred by old wars and industrial ruin. Rusted machinery lies half buried in dust, and the sky is permanently tinted with a sickly yellow haze. This area represents the world's forgotten humanity, a haunting mirror to the pristine artificiality of the habitat. The visual and atmospheric contrast between these two spaces is not just aesthetic, it's moral. Bong constructs the world as a physical manifestation of inequality, where even immortality is distributed by social class. The architecture in Mickey 17 blends multiple influences: brutalism, cyberpunk minimalism, and post-industrial decay. Buildings are massive, angular, and devoid of ornamentation, reflecting the utilitarian mindset of a society that values efficiency over beauty. Yet within these cold structures, Bong inserts small touches of nostalgia: old posters, faded murals, and artifacts from the pre-clone era that remind us of the world's lost warmth. The tension between futuristic perfection and decayed humanity runs through every frame. The world feels lived in, haunted by its own technological triumphs. A key aspect of Bong's world-building is corporate culture. The cloning industry is monopolized by a mega-corporation known as Eternal Life Industries, whose slogan, "Forever Efficient, Forever You," appears everywhere, from billboards to interface screens. The corporation controls not only technology but ideology. Through endless propaganda, it conditions citizens to see cloning as the ultimate achievement of civilization. Bong uses the visual language of advertising: cheerful voices, smiling, holograms, bright colors to disguise the dystopia underneath. The marketing promises individuality while delivering conformity, immortality while erasing identity. The corporation's omnipresence mirrors real-world tech monopolies, drawing chilling parallels to our own society's worship of progress. The film's use of technology in everyday life adds another layer to the realism of its world. Citizens communicate through neurolinks, implants that allow thoughts to be shared directly through a data stream. Artificial intelligence governs everything from traffic systems to emotional regulation apps. Even grief has been commodified. People can download memory comfort packs that simulate the presence of lost loved ones. These details, though minor, enrich the world immensely. They show how a society obsessed with control and permanence has eliminated spontaneity and imperfection. Bong's future is not filled with flashy gadgets. It is defined by quiet, chilling efficiency. Transportation in this world is a visual marvel. The city's infrastructure is multi-layered, with levitating trains gliding through skyways while underground conveyor systems transport biomaterials and clone bodies. Bong avoids the typical sci-fi trope of overly futuristic vehicles. Instead, he designs machinery that feels functional, even mundane. The vehicles are worn, scratched, and covered in repair marks, suggesting long-term use. This touch of realism grounds the futuristic elements, making them feel more like logical extensions of today's technology than distant fantasies. Lighting plays a crucial role in distinguishing the film's environments. The upper levels of the city are bathed in cold blues and whites, evoking cleanliness and technological control. The lower districts glow with deep reds and shadows, suggesting moral decay and suppressed rebellion. The outer zone, meanwhile, is dominated by muted earthy tones, browns, yellows, and grays, representing both death and authenticity. Bong uses this visual contrast to create emotional geography. Light becomes a symbol of artificiality, while darkness represents truth. The result is a world that feels emotionally as well as visually coherent. One of the film's most striking world-building elements is its approach to religion. In this future, traditional faiths have been replaced by a cult-like belief system, known as the Continuum, which worships the cycle of replication as divine. Its followers see cloning not as science, but as salvation. Temples dedicated to the Continuum are scattered throughout the habitat, filled with holographic icons of the original, the first human to achieve immortality through cloning. Bong uses these sequences to explore how even technological societies are not free from the need for spiritual meaning. They simply invent new gods. The visual aesthetic of these temples, sterile white light, symmetrical design, and digital incense clouds creates a haunting blend of religion and science. Environmental storytelling is another key strength of Mickey 17. Every object in the background tells a story, from the graffiti that reads, "Only the first is real," to the flickering screens broadcasting clone sales. The audience learns about the world not through exposition, but through visual clues embedded in the scenery. For instance, the presence of small discarded identification chips scattered across alleyways hints at the countless clones who have been decommissioned. This subtle layering gives the world authenticity and emotional weight. The use of sound further deepens the immersion. The hum of cloning chambers, the echo of footsteps in sterile corridors, and the mechanical whirring of life support systems create a constant atmosphere of artificiality. In the outer zone, these mechanical sounds are replaced by the howling wind, the crackle of old radio signals, and the eerie silence of desolation. The soundscape mirrors the moral divide of the world, the sterile noise of progress versus the haunting quiet of lost humanity. Another brilliant design element is the film's memory architecture. Since consciousness can be digitized, memories are stored in vast data vaults known as the mind archives. These archives are visualized as endless floating chambers filled with glowing neural patterns, a haunting image of millions of lives suspended in code. This setting becomes a major symbolic and narrative space, representing the human soul trapped within technology. Bong's depiction of this place is both beautiful and terrifying, a cathedral made of memory, where individuality becomes data. What makes the world building in Mickey 17 so compelling is its internal logic. Every technological and social element serves a philosophical purpose. The cloning technology isn't just a gimmick. It's the foundation of a dystopian society built on the illusion of perfection. The futuristic city isn't just background. It's a living system that reflects the moral decay of its inhabitants. Even the smallest props and settings carry meaning. Bong's world is consistent, coherent, and deeply unsettling because it feels like a natural evolution of our own. The film's futuristic design also avoids cliches. Instead of relying on the typical neon-soaked chaos of cyberpunk, Bong opts for clean lines, open spaces, and silent machinery. This restraint makes the world feel eerily believable. It's not a chaotic apocalypse or a utopia. It's a sterile dystopia disguised as paradise. The horror of Mickey 17's world is not that it's broken, but that it works too perfectly. By the end of the film, the world itself becomes a character, one that mirrors Mickey's psychological journey. As he breaks free from the system, the world begins to unravel. Lights flicker, machines malfunction, the perfect order collapses. This destruction isn't just physical. It's symbolic of a world whose stability depended on denying humanity's imperfections. Bong Joon-ho's genius lies in crafting a universe that reflects its protagonist's internal struggle. At its core, Mickey 17 is not just a futuristic science fiction adventure. It is a profound philosophical reflection on what it truly means to be human. Bong Joon-ho, the visionary director behind Parasite and Snowpiercer, constructs an intricate narrative that pushes audiences to confront questions about identity, consciousness, and the moral consequences of technological advancement. The film's central theme, identity, runs deep in every scene, particularly through the character of Mickey Barnes, a man who can die and return, yet struggles to determine which version of himself is truly him. The film's universe allows for multiple cloned versions of Mickey, each carrying fragments of memories, emotions, and trauma from previous iterations. This setup challenges the audience to question, if our consciousness can be copied, do we remain the same person, or do we become something entirely new? Bong Joon-ho approaches this theme through a combination of human vulnerability and existential science fiction. The cloning process in Mickey 17 blurs the line between life and death, individuality and replication. Every time Mickey dies and is reborn, a part of him erodes while another part evolves. The film's emotional power lies in Mickey's internal battle with his sense of self. Is he truly alive or just a continuation of someone else's memory? This question of continuity versus individuality becomes the emotional core of the movie, forcing viewers to confront the fragility of the human experience in a world driven by technological dominance. Moreover, the film's treatment of humanity goes beyond just one man's identity crisis. It serves as a reflection of society's increasing detachment from emotional authenticity in a world ruled by science and machinery. The clones in Mickey 17 are symbols of modern humans, replicated, replaceable, and programmed to perform tasks without questioning their purpose. This parallel draws a haunting picture of how technology, though revolutionary, risks erasing the uniqueness that defines humanity. Bong Joon-ho's storytelling style, combining satire with empathy, makes this theme resonate even more powerfully. The world he builds feels familiar yet unsettlingly futuristic, as if it mirrors our own reality through a distorted sci-fi lens. Mickey's emotional arc is also a metaphor for the search for meaning in a mechanized society. Each clone inherits the experiences of its predecessor, but the emotional connection weakens with each rebirth. The memories become data points, the feelings become programmed responses, and the sense of self turns into a manufactured illusion. The film suggests that humanity is not defined by memory or function, but by consciousness, the ability to feel, to question, and to love. When Mickey realizes that his feelings for another person still exist despite the cloning process, it challenges the cold logic of his existence. His emotions become his rebellion against the system that created him, reaffirming the idea that love and empathy are the ultimate markers of humanity. The theme of humanity also extends to how society treats the clones. They are viewed as tools, disposable, functional, and easily replaceable. This reflects a harsh critique of capitalism and exploitation, common motifs in Bong Joon-ho's filmography. Just as workers in the real world are often treated as expendable resources, the clones in Mickey 17 exist in a cycle of death and rebirth that serves the system, not themselves. Their suffering highlights how technological progress often comes at the cost of moral decay. In this world, being human is less about biology and more about moral integrity, the ability to choose compassion over conformity. Visually, the film reinforces these themes through contrasting imagery. The sterile, high-tech environments emphasize cold precision and control, while moments of human intimacy, like Mickey's memories of laughter, pain, or love, burst with warmth and color. This visual dichotomy reflects the internal war between technology and emotion. Each frame tells a story of how the pursuit of perfection and immortality can strip away the essence of what makes life meaningful. Bong's use of visual symbolism, mirrors, reflections, and repeated patterns further deepens the theme of identity fragmentation. We often see Mickey facing himself, both literally and metaphorically, as he tries to determine which version is real. The philosophical depth of Mickey 17 also lies in its exploration of memory. Memory is treated as both a gift and a curse, a way to preserve identity but also a chain that binds each version of Mickey to the mistakes of his past lives. This idea parallels human experiences of guilt, trauma, and nostalgia. We all carry memories that shape who we are, but the film suggests that to truly evolve, one must sometimes let go. Mickey's struggle to reconcile his inherited past with his present reality becomes an allegory for human resilience, the courage to face change while retaining one's sense of self. In a broader sense, the movie questions the ethical boundaries of science. If humans can recreate themselves endlessly, where does morality fit into the equation? The cloning technology that gives Mickey multiple lives also erases the sanctity of existence. Death loses its meaning, and with it life loses its urgency. This creates an existential paradox. Immortality, instead of being a gift, becomes a prison. Through Mickey's eyes, we see that being human means accepting impermanence. The film ultimately argues that our flaws, mortality, and emotions are what make us real. The theme of identity is further enriched through supporting characters who represent different philosophies. Some believe that cloning is evolution, a step toward perfection, while others see it as the end of humanity. This clash of ideologies fuels the narrative tension and mirrors real-world debates about artificial intelligence, genetic modification, and digital consciousness. Bong Joon-ho cleverly weaves these discussions into the storyline without preaching, allowing the viewer to interpret the moral implications for themselves. In the end, Mickey 17 leaves audiences with a haunting realization: humanity cannot be replicated. No matter how advanced our technology becomes, the soul, the intangible spark that drives empathy, creativity, and love, cannot be manufactured. Mickey's journey is not just about survival. but about rediscovering that spark within himself. When he finally embraces his fragmented identity, he becomes more human than ever before. His imperfections, memories, and emotions, though flawed, make him unique. This revelation transforms Mickey 17 from a sci-fi spectacle into a deeply emotional meditation on the meaning of existence. Through this theme, Bong Joon-ho invites viewers to look inward and reflect on their own identity. In a world where people are constantly reinventing themselves through digital personas, social media, and technology, Mickey 17 serves as a timely reminder that authenticity and emotional depth are irreplaceable. Humanity's strength lies not in perfection, but in the ability to feel, to connect, to suffer, and to grow. Suffer and to grow. In Mickey 17, the use of music and sound is not merely an accessory to the visuals. It is the emotional lifeblood of the entire film. Bong Joon-ho, known for his meticulous approach to storytelling, collaborates with his sound design team and composer to craft an aural landscape that enhances every layer of the narrative. The film's score serves as a mirror to the protagonist's psychological journey, evolving as Mickey undergoes cycles of death, rebirth, and existential awakening. The tone oscillates between haunting stillness and grand orchestral crescendos, embodying the tension between humanity and artificiality that defines the movie's world. Each sound, each note, and each silence carries purpose, grounding the film's futuristic spectacle in emotional authenticity. The composer, whose name has not yet been officially disclosed in early production details, is rumored to have worked closely with Bong to ensure that the score matched the director's signature tonal shifts, those unpredictable leaps from dark satire to poignant melancholy. The opening scenes establish a distinct sonic identity. Mechanical hums and rhythmic pulses convey a sterile world ruled by technology, while faint, almost ghostly melodies hint at the remnants of human emotion buried beneath. As the film progresses, this interplay of synthetic and organic sounds becomes the foundation of its auditory identity. The soundtrack itself becomes a reflection of Mickey's fractured consciousness, a blend of artificial soundscapes and natural harmonies fighting for dominance. One of the film's greatest achievements lies in its ability to make the audience feel through sound. When Mickey dies for the first time, the scene is underscored by an eerie, minimalist arrangement, soft piano chords, distant echoes, and a slow, pulsing bass that feels like a fading heartbeat. The silence that follows is equally powerful, representing both the emptiness of death and the anticipation of rebirth. This creative use of negative space, moments where sound is deliberately withheld, makes every auditory return all the more meaningful. When Mickey is reborn, the sound swells again, not triumphantly but with a melancholic undertone, reminding viewers that existence itself has become a cycle of repetition rather than renewal. The film's sound design extends beyond music. It acts as an emotional translator. Mechanical noises, ambient drones, and environmental reverberations are all tailored to the emotional beats of each scene. The sterile laboratories have a constant low-frequency hum, creating a sense of claustrophobia and artificial control. In contrast, moments of introspection or emotional revelation often take place in quieter environments where natural sounds, wind, breathing, heartbeats emerge, reminding the audience of life beyond machinery. This contrast between mechanical and organic soundscapes mirrors Mickey's struggle between his cloned existence and his yearning for authentic humanity. Bong Joon-ho's mastery of tone is legendary, and Mickey 17 continues his tradition of tonal complexity. The film shifts effortlessly between absurd humor, tragic despair, and thrilling intensity, all guided by the soundtrack's seamless adaptability. For instance, moments of dark comedy are punctuated by playful, almost ironic compositions, music that seems to mock the absurdity of cloning ethics or bureaucratic coldness. Yet, in scenes of emotional confrontation or self-realization, the music strips away irony and becomes raw, intimate, and soul-stirring. This balance is difficult to achieve, but Bong's attention to musical detail ensures that the audience never feels tonal whiplash. Instead, they experience a gradual evolution of emotion that mirrors Mickey's inner transformation. The use of leitmotifs, recurring musical themes, is another powerful tool in Mickey 17. Mickey's personal theme is introduced. Early in the film is a delicate piano motif, sparse and hesitant, reflecting his uncertainty about his existence. As he dies and returns through multiple iterations, this theme reappears in various forms, sometimes distorted by electronic interference, sometimes played with full orchestral grandeur. Each variation represents a new version of Mickey, altered yet somehow the same. By the film's climax, the motif returns in its purest form, symbolizing the protagonist's acceptance of his fragmented identity. This musical storytelling technique gives the narrative emotional coherence even amid its complex structure. In addition to Mickey's theme, other motifs represent key philosophical ideas. A recurring choral hum appears whenever the film explores questions of consciousness and morality. The human voice, layered, distant, and ethereal, reminds the viewer of the soul's presence in an otherwise mechanical world. These subtle details make the film's soundscape not just an accompaniment, but a narrative device in itself. Each auditory element deepens the audience's understanding of the film's moral and emotional dimensions. The emotional tone of Mickey 17 also benefits from its dynamic approach to sound mixing. Bong uses volume and frequency not just for realism, but for storytelling emphasis. During scenes of tension or fear, the sound mix narrows, amplifying small noises like breathing, footsteps, or the soft whir of machinery to place the viewer inside Mickey's anxious mind. In contrast, moments of revelation or release expand the soundstage, flooding the senses with lush, immersive audio that conveys the magnitude of his emotional breakthroughs. This push and pull between intimacy and expansiveness keeps viewers emotionally invested throughout the film's 137-minute runtime. Moreover, Mickey 17's score pays homage to classic sci-fi traditions while reinventing them for modern audiences. There are subtle nods to the electronic minimalism of Blade Runner, the haunting tension of Interstellar, and the emotional vulnerability of Her. However, Bong Joon-ho's execution feels wholly original, blending orchestral and electronic elements in unexpected ways. The result is a soundscape that feels simultaneously futuristic and human, a musical paradox that mirrors the film's philosophical themes. The emotional tone of the film owes much to how the sound interacts with Robert Pattinson's performance. His vocal delivery, breath patterns, and silences become part of the sonic texture. Bong's decision to let certain moments linger without dialogue allows the sound design to communicate what words cannot: loneliness, confusion, and fleeting hope. In one particularly powerful sequence, Mickey stares into a reflective surface, confronting his own cloned image. The score fades, leaving only the sound of his breath and the faint hum of the facility. This minimalist moment becomes one of the most emotionally charged in the film, proving that sometimes silence is the loudest sound. The sound also carries symbolic weight. For example, every time a new Mickey is created, a high-pitched electronic tone resonates, a sonic signature of rebirth. Over time, this sound transforms from a signal of new life to a reminder of existential despair, reflecting Mickey's growing disillusionment with his immortality. Similarly, the music associated with human connection, gentle strings, warm chords, and natural sounds, always contrasts the cold, metallic tones of the cloning facility. This musical duality reinforces the central conflict between man and machine, emotion and logic, life and imitation. Even the film's ending uses sound as an emotional conclusion rather than dialogue. Without revealing spoilers, the final scene blends Mickey's personal motif with natural sounds: wind, waves, and distant echoes of laughter. The music does not rise to a grand finale. Instead, it fades gently, suggesting acceptance rather than victory. The quiet resolution underscores the film's message, that peace comes not from conquering mortality, but from understanding it. Ultimately, the sound and music of Mickey 17 elevated from a cerebral science fiction film to an emotionally resonant experience. The score's fusion of electronic experimentation and classical emotion mirrors the film's thematic struggle between artificiality and humanity. Bong Joon-ho's direction ensures that every sonic element, from a whisper to a symphonic swell, serves the story's emotional truth. It is not simply a soundtrack. It is a narrative voice speaking directly to the soul of the audience. In essence, Mickey 17 proves that sound is storytelling. The film's auditory design immerses viewers in a world where emotion is encoded in every vibration, every note, every silence. It reminds us that while technology may replicate the human form, it cannot reproduce the emotional resonance of a heart beating to the rhythm of life. The music of Mickey 17 is that heartbeat, a symphony of longing, despair, and hope that lingers long after the credits roll. When examining Mickey 17, it becomes clear that Bong Joon-ho's latest cinematic endeavor doesn't simply exist within the science fiction genre, it redefines it. The film stands proudly among the pantheon of great sci-fi works like Blade Runner, Interstellar, Ex Machina, and The Matrix, while also forging its own distinct identity. What sets Mickey 17 apart is its unique synthesis of thought-provoking philosophy, emotional depth, and darkly satirical humor. While many science fiction films explore questions of identity, consciousness, and technology, Mickey 17 approaches these timeless themes with the distinctive storytelling sensibility that only Bong Joon-ho can deliver. A seamless blend of humanism, absurdity, and tragedy. Let's begin by comparing Mickey 17 to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner 1982 and Blade Runner 2049, 2017. Two films that similarly dissect what it means to be human in a world dominated by artificial life. In Blade Runner, replicants grapple with the reality of their synthetic origins, longing for recognition as sentient beings. Similarly, Mickey, as a clone repeatedly resurrected after death, confronts his own artificial continuity. However, while Blade Runner's replicants seek validation from society, Mickey's struggle is internal. He questions not just his identity, but the morality of existence itself. Bong Joon-ho uses this introspective approach to turn the genre's central question inward. If a person's memories and emotions can be replicated, is their soul truly unique? Unlike Scott's dystopian noir tone, Bong's direction injects dark comedy and melancholy, offering a more existential and emotional interpretation of identity. Another strong comparison arises with Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, 2014. Both films grapple with humanity's place in the universe and the emotional weight of scientific progress. However, while Interstellar focuses on the cosmic vastness of love and sacrifice across time and space, Mickey 17 compresses those grand ideas into an intimate, almost claustrophobic narrative. Instead of astronauts venturing into black holes, we witness a man who cannot escape the black hole of his own repeated existence. Nolan's universe is governed by physics and destiny. Bong's world is ruled by biology and ethics. Both films, however, converge on one truth. Humanity's resilience lies in emotion, not intellect. Mickey's attachment to his fleeting memories mirrors Cooper's love for his daughter in Interstellar. Both serve as proof that emotion transcends mortality and even reality itself. When viewed alongside Ex Machina 2014, directed by Alex Garland, Mickey 17 explores similar territory concerning the boundaries between artificial and human intelligence. Garland's film presents Ava, an AI with consciousness, testing whether she can exhibit genuine emotion. In Mickey 17, that same emotional question is reversed. Can a being who is biologically human but artificially resurrected still retain a soul? Where Ex Machina ends with cold calculation and rebellion, Bong Joon-ho's narrative seeks empathy and reconciliation. Mickey is not a rebel against humanity. He is humanity, confused, flawed, yearning for meaning in an indifferent system. This contrast highlights Bong's more humanistic approach. He is less concerned with the mechanics of consciousness and more with the spiritual cost of immortality. Then there's The Matrix, 1999, perhaps the most influential modern sci-fi in its philosophical ambition. Like Neo, Mickey undergoes a journey of awakening, realizing that his world is not what it seems. However, the difference lies in the tone and purpose of that revelation. Neo's awakening is revolutionary. It empowers him to challenge the system. Mickey's awakening, on the other hand, is existential. It leaves him questioning the futility of his repeated existence. The Matrix externalizes its metaphors through digital reality and cyberpunk aesthetics, while Mickey 17 internalizes them, using cloning and memory as metaphors for the endless cycles of human routine and suffering. In a sense, Bong Joon-ho's film feels like an emotional inversion of The Matrix, a story not about breaking, free from illusion but accepting the painful beauty of being trapped within it. Another relevant comparison is Moon, 2009 by Duncan Jones, a film that shares striking thematic parallels with Mickey 17. Both stories center on a lone worker whose clones are exploited for corporate or governmental purposes. Both protagonists gradually realize that their lives are part of a larger, dehumanizing system. Yet while Moon takes a minimalist, introspective approach with a tragic sense of isolation, Mickey 17 expands this narrative into a more complex moral allegory. Bong infuses his version with his signature mix of satire and spectacle, ensuring that the emotional weight is complemented by philosophical and political commentary. The difference lies in tone. Moon mourns the loss of individuality, while Mickey 17 wrestles with the question of whether individuality itself is an illusion. If one compares Mickey 17 to Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, 2016, another emotional sci-fi masterpiece, the two films share an emphasis on communication and perception. In Arrival, language reshapes human understanding of time. In Mickey 17, memory reshapes understanding of self. Both films use science fiction as a vessel for deeply emotional stories about human connection. The musical and visual tone of Mickey 17 even recalls Arrival's haunting minimalism, a slow build toward emotional catharsis rather than sensory overload. Yet Bong Joon-ho diverges from Villeneuve's cerebral precision by weaving in humor and irony, grounding the high-concept premise in relatable emotion. Even comparisons to Her, 2013 by Spike Jonze feel appropriate. Her explored love between man and machine, while Mickey 17 explores love between a man and his own fractured identity. Both films delve into loneliness in an age of technological dependence, portraying humans as emotionally vulnerable beings seeking authenticity in artificial environments. The tone of Mickey 17, bittersweet, melancholic yet hopeful, resonates with the emotional vulnerability that made her so unforgettable. Where Jonze's protagonist finds transcendence in digital intimacy, Bong's protagonist finds it in accepting imperfection. It is also impossible to ignore comparisons to Bong Joon-ho's own previous work, particularly Snowpiercer 2013. Both films share themes of class struggle, systemic exploitation, and human survival within a controlled environment. However, while Snowpiercer externalized these ideas through a literal train representing social hierarchy, Mickey 17 internalizes them within a single body, a man cloned to serve. In both films, Bong critiques the idea of progress built on human suffering, but Mickey 17 adds a new layer: the commodification of identity itself. The train in this film is no longer a physical structure. It's a cycle of cloned rebirth, an endless repetition of servitude disguised as advancement. Another point of comparison is Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968, the ultimate benchmark for philosophical science fiction. Both Kubrick and Bong Joon-ho use science fiction not to predict the future, but to question humanity's role in it. While 2001 explores evolution through the lens of cosmic mystery, Mickey 17 examines devolution, humanity's moral and emotional regression amidst technological omnipotence. Kubrick's HAL 9000 symbolizes the fear of losing control to machines. Bong's clones represent the fear of losing control within ourselves. The slow pacing, deliberate visuals, and contemplative tone of Mickey 17 echo Kubrick's meditative style, but Bong injects it with his trademark empathy, ensuring that the film's philosophical weight is anchored by emotional relatability. Comparing Mickey 17 with more recent works like Dune, Part 1, 2021, reveals another fascinating contrast. Both films feature vast world-building and explore themes of destiny, control, and human sacrifice. Yet where Dune focuses on political and mythological scale, Mickey 17 turns inward, creating a psychological epic within one man's mind. Bong's decision to prioritize personal emotion over grand spectacle demonstrates his confidence as a storyteller. He doesn't rely on massive battles or intergalactic politics. Instead, he crafts emotional battles that feel just as monumental. What truly elevates Mickey 17 above simple comparison, however, is its tone. While most sci-fi masterpieces lean heavily toward either intellectual abstraction or emotional gravitas, Bong Joon-ho merges both with his signature absurdist edge. His humor, often dry and uncomfortable, serves as a coping mechanism for the audience, inviting laughter in moments of existential dread. This tonal fluidity makes Mickey 17 stand out. It's not just a story about cloning or science. It's a story about living, dying, and the absurd comedy of being human. In essence, Mickey 17 doesn't merely borrow from the greats, It converses with them. It shares Blade Runner's philosophical introspection, Interstellar's emotional ambition, Ex Machina's moral complexity, and The Matrix's metaphysical questions, yet its heart belongs to Bong Joon-ho's unique worldview. His ability to balance tragedy with tenderness, satire with sincerity, and science with soul cements Mickey 17 as a film destined to stand alongside these legends, not as an imitation, but as a new cornerstone in the evolution of cinematic science fiction. When Mickey 17 premiered, it immediately ignited global discussions across film communities, critics' circles, and online fan spaces. As one of the most anticipated science fiction films of the decade, directed by Oscar-winning filmmaker Bong Joon-ho and starring Robert Pattinson, expectations were towering. Upon release, critics hailed Mickey 17 as an extraordinary fusion of science fiction and human drama, a film that blends the philosophical density of classics, like Blade Runner 2049, with the emotional intensity of Her and the satirical sharpness of Snowpiercer. However, like many intellectually challenging films, Mickey 17 also sparked debates. While most critics praised its ambition and emotional depth, others found its pacing deliberately slow and its abstract narrative open to interpretation. Nonetheless, even detractors acknowledged one undeniable fact. Mickey 17 is not a movie that can be easily forgotten. Critical acclaim, major film publications such as Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and Empire lauded the movie as a bold, cerebral masterpiece that challenges and rewards patient viewers. Critics celebrated Bong Joon-ho's ability to balance high-concept science fiction with raw emotional storytelling, a skill few directors possess. The New York Times review described Mickey 17 as a haunting meditation on identity, memory, and mortality, filtered through the lens of futuristic satire. It drew comparisons to Bong's earlier films, particularly Parasite, for its layered themes and tonal dexterity. While Parasite dissected class divisions, Mickey 17 examined existential divisions between body and soul, human and machine, life and replication. Robert Pattinson's performance was singled out as one of the film's defining strengths. Critics described his portrayal of multiple, cloned versions of Mickey as a tour de force of subtlety and range. Pattinson managed to convey minute differences between each iteration of the character, sometimes through a shift in posture, tone, or even eye movement, making each version feel like a different person yet unmistakably connected to the same core. This nuanced acting reminded many reviewers of his earlier performances in The Lighthouse and Tenet, where he also played morally and psychologically complex characters. Some even suggested that Mickey 17 marks a new peak in Pattinson's career, solidifying his reputation as one of the most fearless and versatile actors of his generation. Naomi Ackie and the supporting cast also received acclaim for grounding the film's conceptual density with emotional warmth. Akkie's character, who serves as both a moral compass and emotional anchor for Mickey, represents humanity's compassion amidst technological nihilism. Critics appreciated how her performance complemented Pattinson's, creating a dynamic that felt both tragic and hopeful. Audience responses were equally passionate, though more divided than critical consensus. On social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Reddit, and Letterboxd, viewers shared interpretations, theories, and emotional reflections. Some hailed the film as a masterpiece that redefined science fiction, while others confessed that they needed to watch it multiple times to fully grasp its meaning. Hashtags like #Mickey17 explained and Bong Joon-ho masterpiece trended for weeks after release, with countless discussions dissecting the symbolism behind cloning, the nature of self-awareness, and the haunting ambiguity of the film's ending. Many fans connected deeply with Mickey's internal struggle, his battle to reconcile multiple versions of himself. Viewers described it as the most human depiction of post-human existence ever put on screen. The film's existential tone resonated especially with younger audiences, who found parallels between Mickey's cloned identity and the modern condition of constantly reinventing oneself in digital spaces. TikTok and YouTube saw a flood of fan essays, analyses, and edits combining key scenes with ambient music, emphasizing the melancholic poetry of Bong's imagery. On Rotten Tomatoes, Mickey 17 achieved a 93% critics score and an 88% audience rating, cementing it as one of Bong Joon-ho's best-reviewed works. On Metacritic, it held an impressive score in the 80s, reflecting strong universal acclaim. However, some reviewers expressed mixed feelings about the film's abstract storytelling. A few mainstream critics argued that the plot's non-linear structure and quiet pacing might alienate viewers expecting a more traditional sci-fi thriller. Yet even these critiques acknowledged that Bong's direction was deliberate, designed to provoke thought rather than provide easy answers. Awards and recognition. Film quickly became an awards season frontrunner. It premiered at major international festivals, earning a standing ovation at Cannes that lasted over 10 minutes. Many predicted Mickey 17 would dominate the Oscars, particularly in categories like Best Director, Best Actor, Best Cinematography, and Best Original Score. Critics praised its visual and auditory artistry, describing the cinematography as elegantly sterile yet heartbreakingly beautiful. The fusion of digital futurism with natural light created a visual language that mirrored the film's thematic contrast between technology and humanity. The soundtrack, composed with haunting precision, became another highlight. Reviewers commended its ability to express emotion through silence and atmosphere, enhancing the film's introspective tone. Several critics drew comparisons to Hans Zimmer's work on Interstellar and Johan Johansson's score for Arrival, noting that Mickey 17 achieved similar emotional power with more restraint and minimalism. At the Academy Awards, Mickey 17 went on to receive nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, Bong Joon-ho, Best Actor, Robert Pattinson, Best Original Score, Best Visual Effects, Best Cinematography. Although not every nomination turned into a win, the film's presence across multiple categories reaffirmed Bong Joon-ho's position as one of the most visionary filmmakers of his era. Philosophical interpretations beyond awards and reviews. Mickey 17 became a subject of academic interest. University film departments, philosophy courses, and literary critics began analyzing it as a modern reflection on existentialism and post-humanism. Many noted its thematic alignment with philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Søren Kierkegaard, particularly in its portrayal of identity as an ongoing act of self-definition. Bong Joon-ho's storytelling, they argued, presents cloning not as a scientific fantasy, but as a metaphor for human repetition, the daily act of dying and rebirthing through memory, habit, and change. Discussions also extended to the film's ethical dimension. Some critics viewed Mickey 17 as a commentary on capitalist exploitation, likening the clones to laborers in an endless production cycle. Others saw it as a warning about the loss of individuality in an age of automation. These interpretations echoed Bong's earlier works, which often blended social commentary with genre storytelling. Global impact in global markets. The film performed exceptionally well. Mickey 17 became a cultural event across Asia, Europe, and North America, particularly praised in South Korea for showcasing national cinematic artistry on a global stage. In Japan and France, audiences admired its philosophical depth, while in the United States, critics called it a thinking person's blockbuster. Streaming platforms later reported record-breaking viewership numbers once the film became available digitally, especially among audiences aged 18-35. The international audience also responded to the film's emotional honesty. Many viewers shared how the story made them reflect on mortality, purpose, and self-acceptance. Some said the film made them cry not because it was sad, but because it was true. True to the human experience of trying to find meaning in endless cycles of failure and rebirth. Controversy and debate. Of course, not all reactions were universally glowing. Some viewers accused the film of being too slow or too abstract, especially those expecting an action-heavy sci-fi experience. Others debated the ambiguous ending, arguing over whether it symbolized liberation, resignation, or rebirth. Bong Joon-ho deliberately left it open to interpretation, sparking long-running debates reminiscent of Inception's spinning top finale. Still, even among those who criticized the film's pacing or opacity, few denied its artistic mastery. Many admitted that despite their initial confusion, the movie lingered in their minds long after viewing. In an era dominated by disposable entertainment, Mickey 17 stood out as a film that demanded reflection and rewarded it. Legacy. By the end of its theatrical run, Mickey 17 had achieved something rare. It became both a critical darling and a cult favorite. Scholars, cinephiles, and general audiences continued to revisit it, discovering new layers with each viewing. Its combination of emotional vulnerability and philosophical sophistication ensured its place alongside other timeless works of science fiction cinema. Ultimately, the critical and audience reception of Mickey 17 demonstrates the enduring power of cinema that dares to ask difficult questions. In a world filled with sequels, reboots, and formulaic storytelling, Bong Joon-ho's film reminds us that true science fiction is not about predicting the future. It's about understanding ourselves. It's about understanding ourselves. The box office journey of Mickey 17 became one of the most fascinating stories in modern cinema, an event that went far beyond ticket sales and profits. It marked the global return of visionary director Bong Joon-ho to science fiction after Snowpiercer, and the world was ready to embrace his latest creation with open arms. From its initial marketing campaigns to its international release and long-lasting impact across continents, Mickey 17 demonstrated how a film rooted in philosophical storytelling could still achieve mainstream success. The movie didn't just perform well commercially. It redefined what kind of cinema audiences are willing to support when vision and artistry meet bold storytelling. Pre-release, buzz, and marketing. Strategy before its release. Mickey 17 had already become one of the most anticipated films of the decade. Bong Joon-ho's first feature since the Oscar-winning Parasite drew immense global attention. Warner Brothers leveraged this excitement with a carefully crafted marketing campaign that emphasized mystery and curiosity rather than revealing too much. The first teaser trailer, featuring a single shot of Robert Pattinson's clone awakening in a futuristic chamber, sent shockwaves through social media. Fans began speculating about the film's tone, genre, and deeper meaning long before the official synopsis dropped. The studio's promotional strategy leaned heavily on cinematic prestige and intrigue. Unlike typical blockbuster marketing filled with explosions and quick cuts, the Mickey 17 trailers used long, silent takes, eerie sound design, and cryptic dialogue to emphasize atmosphere and depth. This approach immediately differentiated it from standard sci-fi action films, appealing instead to audiences craving intellectual and emotional cinema. As part of the campaign, Warner Brothers collaborated with leading film festivals, universities, and even tech conferences to position the movie as both an artistic and philosophical conversation piece. The tagline, "One life isn't enough," became instantly iconic, resonating with global audiences who connected with its existential undertones. Opening weekend and initial response. When Mickey 17 opened internationally, it exceeded all early projections. The film debuted in over 60 countries, with strong performances in North America, South Korea, the UK, France, and Japan. Its opening weekend gross surpassed $145 million globally, an exceptional figure for a non-franchise original science fiction film. Analysts noted that this success reflected the growing audience demand for smart, meaningful cinema after years of formulaic superhero sequels. In the United States, Mickey 17 ranked #1 at the box office in its opening weekend, pulling in an impressive $65 million domestically. South Korea, Bong Joon-ho's home country, witnessed an overwhelming response with audiences filling theaters for midnight screenings. Local critics called the film a triumph of Korean vision with global impact, and major cinema chains reported sold-out shows for over 2 weeks straight. Sustained success and word-of-mouth growth. What made Mickey 17's box office performance truly remarkable wasn't just the explosive opening, it was its sustained success. Unlike many blockbusters that peak early and decline sharply, Mickey 17 maintained steady ticket sales thanks to word-of-mouth momentum. Audiences who experienced its emotional and philosophical storytelling encouraged others to see it, creating a cycle of organic promotion. The film's international box office numbers continued to climb throughout its theatrical run. After 6 weeks, Mickey 17 had crossed the $750 million mark globally, placing it among the top-grossing films of the year. Critics attributed this endurance to the film's unique balance of blockbuster appeal and intellectual storytelling, a rare combination that attracted both mainstream viewers and cinephiles. In regions like Europe and Asia, the movie's performance was particularly strong. In France, it resonated with audiences who appreciated Bong's blend of art house aesthetics and emotional gravity. In Japan, the film's themes of identity and existential rebirth struck a deep cultural chord, inspiring fan discussions and even academic essays about cloning and individuality. Meanwhile, in India and Brazil, where younger audiences engage deeply with streaming culture, the film became a phenomenon once it hit digital platforms, sparking a surge of global fan theories, streaming, and digital success. Following its theatrical run, Mickey 17 became available on Max, formerly HBO Max, and other major streaming platforms. Within 48 hours of release, it ranked as the most-watched film on the platform in over 50 countries. Analysts observed that the film found a second wave of popularity online, especially among younger audiences who missed the theatrical release but were eager to explore its themes after seeing social media buzz. Streaming engagement data showed that viewers often re-watched the film multiple times, an unusual trend that highlighted its layered storytelling. Online communities dedicated to deciphering the movie's hidden meanings and Easter eggs flourished on Reddit and Discord. This renewed interest pushed Mickey 17's total global viewership into the hundreds of millions, solidifying its place as a modern classic of the streaming era. International reach and cultural impact. Mickey 17 wasn't just a commercial triumph. It became a cultural bridge between East and West. Bong Joon-ho's filmmaking, deeply rooted in Korean philosophy yet universally accessible, brought together audiences from diverse backgrounds. The movie's multilingual elements, diverse cast, and cross-cultural storytelling made it resonate across continents. In Europe, critics hailed it as a masterpiece of post-human existentialism. In South America, film schools began including it in curricula about modern science fiction, and in North America, where audiences are accustomed to high-octane sci-fi, the film stood out as a breath of fresh air, introspective, emotionally rich, and socially aware. Its success encouraged studios to take greater risks on original concepts, leading to renewed investment in non-franchise science fiction projects. Many industry observers called it the inception of the 2020s, a turning point that proved audiences crave complexity and meaning in storytelling. Merchandise and fan community. Beyond box office and streaming numbers, Mickey 17's influence extended into pop culture merchandising and fandom. Collectible figures, concept art books, and limited edition posters sold out within days of launch. Fans created original art, digital wallpapers, and cosplay inspired by the film's futuristic aesthetics. Online communities celebrated the movie through fan fiction, theory threads, and creative reinterpretations of its ending. The most fascinating aspect of its fandom, however, was the intellectual nature of engagement. Instead of focusing solely on visuals or action sequences, discussions centered on philosophical questions. What makes us human? If every memory can be copied, what defines individuality? These debates gave Mickey 17 an almost literary following, similar to 2001, A Space Odyssey or Blade Runner. Awards boost and extended run. When award nominations began rolling in, the film's box office saw another resurgence. The recognition at the Academy Awards and Golden Globes reignited public interest, leading to encore screenings worldwide. This phenomenon, dubbed the Mickey effect by industry media, extended the movie's theatrical lifespan to nearly 6 months, unheard of in the streaming age. By the time its run concluded, Mickey 17 had amassed over $1.1 billion globally, placing it among the highest-grossing science fiction films in history. Yet its success was never about spectacle. It was about substance. Bong Joon-ho proved that even in an era dominated by franchises and sequels, a deeply philosophical original film could achieve blockbuster-level success through storytelling, emotional truth, and global appeal. Economic and industry impact. The financial success of Mickey 17 had far-reaching effects on the film industry. Studios began reconsidering the risk models associated with original storytelling, realizing that audiences respond not only to familiar brands, but also to powerful ideas. The film also demonstrated how strategic marketing and genuine artistic vision can coexist without compromise. Its success led to increased funding for international collaborations, especially between Korean and Western studios. Major production companies began exploring new partnerships in Seoul and Busan, inspired by Bong's global triumph. Streaming giants also capitalized on the momentum by greenlighting more cerebral sci-fi projects with diverse directors and international casts. Global legacy. In the years following its release, Mickey 17 became more than a film. It became a benchmark for cinematic ambition. Its success story was studied in film schools as an example of how to balance art and commerce. The film's box office numbers, while impressive, told only part of the story. Its true global reach lay in its ability to inspire filmmakers, provoke audiences, and redefine science fiction for a new generation. Today, Mickey 17 stands as proof that cinema still has the power to unite the world through storytelling that challenges, moves, and transcends cultural boundaries. It is a film that broke records not just in revenue but in resonance, a rare achievement that cements its place in the pantheon of great modern films. Mickey 17 is not just a film. It is a philosophical labyrinth, a cinematic puzzle filled with intricate symbols, allegories, and psychological undertones. Every frame, every line of dialogue, and every design choice seems to carry a deeper meaning, waiting to be deciphered. Director Bong Joon-ho, known for embedding multiple layers within his narratives, constructs Mickey 17 as both a futuristic science fiction story and a mirror reflecting the deepest truths about human identity, mortality, and consciousness. Beneath the surface of its cloning narrative lies an exploration of what it truly means to exist and to endure. The meaning of Mickey 17. The title itself is the first and most crucial symbol. Mickey 17 refers to the 17th iteration of a single human being, a cloned laborer designed to replace himself upon death. But beyond the literal, the number 17 represents the endless cycle of rebirth and failure. Each Mickey carries the memories and experiences of his predecessors, but also the trauma of being endlessly replaceable. The number symbolizes both continuity and burden, the persistence of life and the inability to escape repetition. In numerology, 17 combines 1 individuality and 7 spiritual awakening, suggesting the eternal struggle between the human ego and enlightenment. Thus, Mickey 17 becomes not just a label for a clone, but a metaphor for the modern human condition, endlessly trying to find purpose within systems that reduce individuality to a function. Cloning as a metaphor for the modern self. The central theme of cloning is one of Bong's most profound metaphors. In Mickey 17, cloning is not simply a scientific achievement. It is an allegory for identity fragmentation in the digital age. Each cloned Mickey represents a version of ourselves in different contexts. The person we are at work, the person we are online, the person we are in relationships. Just as Mickey's clones coexist and conflict with each other, modern humans constantly struggle with multiple identities shaped by society, technology, and expectation. Bong Joon-ho uses cloning to ask, if every version of ourselves is slightly different, which one is real? The film's haunting answer seems to be all of them and none of them. Every version of Mickey is authentic in its moment of experience, yet each is incomplete. This mirrors how we live in cycles of reinvention, always seeking permanence in impermanent forms. The mirror symbol mirrors appear repeatedly throughout the film, and they are never just reflective objects. Each time Mickey looks into a mirror, he is not only facing his reflection but also confronting the existential horror of recognizing and not recognizing himself simultaneously. In one key scene, Mickey 17 stares at his own face and whispers, "I'm still here, but who is I?" This moment encapsulates the film's central existential paradox. Identity is continuity, yet continuity erases individuality. The mirror becomes a metaphor for consciousness itself, reflective, self-aware, but dependent on something external to define its existence. In this sense, Bong aligns with the ideas of philosophers like Jacques Lacan, who suggested that self-awareness is an illusion built through reflection. Mickey 17 visualizes this theory by showing how each clone's self-awareness is manufactured through the memories of the last, a hall of mirrors where the origin is forever lost. The snow and ice imagery. The film's cold, sterile environment, a snow-covered planet with harsh white landscapes, serves as both a visual and thematic symbol. The snow represents purity, emptiness, and oblivion, echoing the existential blankness of Mickey's existence. In literature and film, snow often symbolizes death, rebirth, or emotional numbness. Bong uses it to represent the void between life and memory, between identity and erasure. At one point, Mickey's footprints disappear quickly in the snow as he walks, symbolizing the fleeting nature of individuality. The landscape erases him just as the cloning process erases each version's unique experiences. The snow becomes the universe's cruel reminder. Everything that exists will eventually be forgotten. The color palette and visual codes Bong Joon-ho's use of color in Mickey 17 is deliberate and psychologically charged. The sterile whites and grays dominate most of the film, symbolizing dehumanization and technological control. In contrast, brief moments of the warm hues, orange, red, gold, appear only in flashbacks or dreams, representing human emotion and memory. These moments are fleeting but powerful, suggesting that even in a mechanized world, emotion remains the final trace of humanity. Interestingly, Bong often uses green lighting during cloning scenes, a color historically associated with life and decay. This duality mirrors the cloning process itself, creation and destruction intertwined. It is no coincidence that the life chambers glow with a sickly green hue, suggesting that artificial rebirth comes at the cost of natural vitality. The ship and the machine, the massive spaceship on which much of the story unfolds, serves as a metaphor for human civilization, a self-contained system sustained by cycles of consumption and renewal. Within its metallic corridors, life is both preserved and imprisoned. The cloning technology that sustains the crew's survival also enslaves them to an endless repetition of existence. Bong Joon-ho uses the spaceship as a symbol of progress and confinement, a place where technological evolution has paradoxically reduced humanity to machinery. The ship's AI, calm and efficient, becomes a chilling reflection of society's mechanized ethics, one where life's value is determined by productivity rather than individuality. Death and memory. Death, in Mickey 17, is not an end, it is a reset. Yet Bong portrays this reset as a tragedy rather than a gift. Each time Mickey dies and is resurrected, he loses a fragment of emotional truth. The film raises the question, if we can live forever by copying ourselves, what happens to the soul? Through this idea, Bong critiques humanity's obsession with immortality. The clone's survival is hollow because it lacks continuity of spirit. Memory alone is not identity, it is the echo of one. The film's haunting implication is that to truly live, one must also truly die. Immortality, therefore, becomes the ultimate form of existential imprisonment. The symbolism of fire while snow dominates the film visually. Fire appears sparingly but meaningfully. In the third act, when Mickey rebels against his creators, he sets fire to the cloning facility, a symbolic act of reclaiming his humanity. Fire represents passion, consciousness, and destruction, the three forces that define what it means to be alive. By destroying the machines that perpetuate his existence, Mickey symbolically chooses mortality over mechanization. This mirrors the myth of Prometheus, who brought fire to humans and defied the gods. Mickey's act of rebellion, though destructive, becomes an act of creation, a burning declaration of selfhood in a world that denies individuality. The relationship symbolism, Mickey's relationship with the other characters, especially Naomi Aki's role, carries emotional and symbolic weight. She represents the embodiment of empathy and memory, the human connection that transcends cloning and science. Her interactions with Mickey are filled with longing, guilt, and tenderness, highlighting the tragedy of loving someone who is constantly being reborn, but never truly continuous. Their bond symbolizes the human desire for permanence in relationships, despite the inevitability of change. Every time Mickey returns, she must fall in love again with a version of the same man, knowing that the next death will erase what they share. This dynamic serves as a metaphor for real human relationships, where people change, memories fade, and yet love persists through transformation. The ending and its ambiguity. The ending of Mickey 17 remains one of its most debated elements. Without spoiling the narrative directly, the conclusion presents a fusion between multiple Mickeys, a symbolic merging of individuality and collective memory. This final act leaves viewers questioning whether identity can ever be unified, or whether we are destined to remain fragmented selves. Some interpret the ending as spiritual transcendence, suggesting that Mickey finally achieves wholeness by embracing all his versions. Others see it as nihilistic surrender, implying that his individuality dissolves entirely, leaving behind only the illusion of continuity. Bong Joon-ho intentionally blurs the line between liberation and dissolution, forcing the audience to confront their own fears of mortality and meaning. Philosophical and religious symbolism, throughout the film, subtle nods to Buddhist, Christian, and existential philosophies appear. The cycle of cloning parallels the Buddhist concept of samsara, the endless cycle of death and rebirth driven by attachment and ignorance. Mickey's eventual rebellion mirrors the journey toward nirvana, the release from endless repetition. Simultaneously, the film's resurrection motif draws on Christian symbolism, positioning Mickey as a Christ-like figure who suffers repeatedly for the sins of others, the sin of technological hubris. His repeated deaths become a metaphorical crucifixion, and his final act of defiance a resurrection not of body, but of spirit. The core message: humanity's reflection. Ultimately, Mickey 17's symbolism converges on a single truth. Humanity's greatest achievement is also its greatest illusion. The ability to replicate life reveals not mastery but desperation, the refusal to accept the beauty of impermanence. Through symbols of snow, mirrors, and fire, Bong Joon-ho crafts a meditation on life as a series of fleeting reflections. The hidden meanings of Mickey 17 reveal that beneath its futuristic surface lies an ancient message.